Chapter 1643. What was important was that they had talked about it. As long as the officials were talked about, they would be suspected when they returned to the southern Ming dynasty. It would be even more difficult for them to be put in an important position. How could Qin Sun and Wang's would not see the reason behind this? However, they had no other choice. In the territory of Qiqian City, they did not dare to go against Yang Qindong's good intentions. Moreover, they also needed to find a way out for themselves. Although being able to go to the meeting did not mean that they would definitely join the Yangxia, at least they would not offend Bugnam of Gojoseon. Moreover, so many officials did not refuse, so why would they refuse? Wasn't this the same as digging their own graves? No one with political wisdom would do such a foolish thing. In the same small courtyard, Yang Lu was listening to Yang Ying's report. He was talking about the officials of the Southern Ming Dynasty's observation group being talked about. Master, as of now, all the officials of rank 4 and above in the observation group have been talked about. Yang Qindong has used almost all the officials of the City Lord's mansion and has already started to talk about the rank 5 officials. When Yang Ying said this, his face revealed an expression of admiration. At this moment, Yang Lu's face was also filled with admiration. He naturally saw through Yang Qindong's intentions. It was because of this that he could not help but say with admiration, "Amazing, my young master really has good methods." Presumably, Emperor Ingzong will have a headache and will not dare to put these people in important positions. This is equivalent to cutting off one of his own arms before the battle. Yang Ying also nodded and said, "That's right. If they don't dare to trust these people, then in a certain period of time, Ingzong will have no one to use. It is very likely that there will be internal chaos in the southern Ming dynasty." "No, it is not a possibility, but a certainty," Yang Lu said with a very firm tone. Then his tone changed. "However, this has nothing to do with us. It is even a good thing. What we want is to take the chestnuts out of the chaos." "Right. How are the arrangements on Yang Yang's side?" "Everything is arranged properly. The poor and stupid him does not know that he is being used by us." Speaking of this matter, Yang Ying's face was filled with pride. This time there were embroidered uniform guards among the members of the Southern Ming observation group. This was one of the methods the great Ming Emperor used to monitor his subjects. One of the commanders, named Wenjing, had another mission, which was to contact Yang Yang and create a false impression that Chao Jixiang wanted to join Bugnam of Gojoseon to lure him in. Hearing Yang Ying say that the plan was going well, Yang Lu's expression became better. "Good, haha. If that's the case, we have to be prepared. Remember, this time we can only succeed and not fail. Otherwise, we will die without a burial ground." Yang Ying replied with a straight face, "Master, please rest assured. We have prepared for this for a long time. There will definitely be no problems." "All right, let's wait and see," Yang Lu said with a face full of excitement. Then he muttered to himself in a voice that no one else could hear, "I hope you can cooperate. Like this, as a master and servant, I can still spare your life. Otherwise, I can only force you to be ruthless." Crimson City Pier. This day was very lively. The 13,000 people of the Southern Ming observation group were queuing up to board the ship. Compared to the excitement they had when they came, most of them were reluctant to leave. They could eat well, sleep well, and have so many fun things here. It was really hard for them to give up. Now that they were finally going to leave, they were going to return to their previous lives. For a moment, a sense of disappointment filled everyone's hearts. Yu Qian, Xin Yu, and the others also appeared in front of the pier to send everyone off. They were bidding farewell to Qin Sun, Wang Zhua, and the others in front of the pier. With a bitter smile on his face, Qin Sun looked at Yu Qian in front of him and didn't know what to say. Thousands of words turned into one sentence. "Yu Qian, you've really screwed this old man over." "Master Qin, don't say that. Can't you see that our Yangxia is already much stronger than the Southern Ming Empire? This is because our king is virtuous. Otherwise, it would be like dealing with other foreign races and other countries. As long as the army moved, would the Southern Ming Empire be able to stop it? Yu Qian didn't feel that it was too much. Instead, he spoke the truth. During this time, Chun Sen also went to the 5-star Army's barracks. He looked at the equipment and the training process. He also saw the long line of young people signing up. Chun Sen was very envious that so many people in Crimson City volunteered to join the army. It was unlike the Southern Ming Empire, where the army relied on soldiers. When there weren't enough soldiers, they could only go to the various cities to recruit strong men. One was voluntary, the other was forced. The result was obvious. The conclusion was that the Southern Ming Empire was definitely not a match for the 5-star army. Thus, Yu Qian's words were true. However, if Chun Sen joined the Yangtze, because of this, he wouldn't be able to get over it. He decided to think about it carefully. He didn't reply to Yu Qian's words, and only smiled. On the other side, Shen Yu was chatting with Wang Zhuo and the others. On the surface, it looked like they were enjoying themselves. Come over when you have time. As long as you are willing. The gates of Crimson City are always open for everyone, Shen Yu said with a smile. Wang Zhuo and the others naturally wouldn't be stupid enough to immediately nod and agree to this obvious solicitation. They could only chuckle and change the topic. Bugnam of Gojoseon has arrived. Just as everyone was waiting to board the ship, a group of majestic cavalry came from not far from the dock. Then Yang Qindong, who was wearing a golden cape, came from afar under the protection of the Black Knight Dragon Guards. King is here. Yu Qian and Shen Yu immediately straightened their bodies and tidied their clothes before walking over. The other Southern Ming officials who hadn't boarded the ship also hurriedly stood in several rows with a respectful appearance. Soon, the cavalry arrived at the pier, and Yu Qian took the initiative to say, "King, didn't you say you weren't coming?" "How could that be? They are the backbone of our Han people. If they want to leave, how can this king not send them off?" Yang Qindong said as he dismounted. Then, accompanied by Yu Qian, Shen Yu, and the others, he walked over to the group of Southern Ming officials and shook hands with them one by one. During this period of time, everyone was used to this way of greeting and shaking hands, so everyone was very cooperative. There were even some officials who, after shaking hands with Yang Qindong, had their faces flushed red. Needless to say, this was caused by excitement and excitement. While shaking hands with everyone, Yang Qindong said loudly, "I believe everyone has seen how happy the Han people are living under the leadership of Yang Xie, and we live in this era. Since we have the conditions, what we should do is to let more Han people live a better life. This can't be done by just relying on the efforts of this king and Yang Xie's officials. We still need everyone's support." Well said, well said. The Southern Ming officials nodded in agreement. Using the people's livelihood as an example was indeed something that no one could refute. Seeing that the effect was achieved, Yang Qindong smiled and watched as everyone boarded the ships. Ships appeared one by one and left one by one, slowly sailing out of Crimson City's new pier. On the cruise ship, many members of the observer group were still waving their hands towards the shore, looking reluctant to part with them. Wang Jiqing and his sister Wang Shang also waved for a while. When they saw that the pier was far away, they casually found a place to rest in the ship's cabin. Then Wang Shang's pleasant voice sounded, "Crimson City is so good. It's 10,000 times better than our capital. I really don't know when we will be able to come back." After sighing, Wang Shang said to herself, "Brother, if grandfather comes to Yangtze to be an official, do you think we can live here forever?" Wang Jiqing, who was called by his sister, nodded perfunctorily. That's right. At this moment, he didn't hear what his sister said at all. All of his attention was on the ship's cabin. In the end, he still won. He borrowed some money from his friends and sister to buy a bicycle and left it there. This was his biggest gain from this trip. He even began to imagine what kind of commotion he would attract when he rode a bicycle through the streets of the capital, and how many envious gazes would look at him. One of the siblings was talking, while the other was thinking about something. They didn't notice that not far from them, 2 embroidered uniform guards had already secretly recorded everything they said and how they behaved. It was written that Wang Shang had an incomparable love for Crimson City and wanted to persuade her grandfather, Wang Zhua, to be an official in Yangxia. Her brother Wang Jiqing was also thinking about the feasibility of this and nodded thoughtfully. Strictly speaking, the contents of the records didn't match up, because Wang Jiqing didn't hear what his sister said at all. However, this wasn't important. What was important was what Emperor Ying would think when he saw these records, what kind of measures he would take, and what kind of commotion Wang Zhua and the entire Wang family would face. In front of the pier, the last ship had already left. Yang Qindong sighed and said, "Our actions this time will definitely make Emperor Ying unhappy. I'm afraid these officials will be in danger. How about this? You guys immediately come up with a plan. If there's danger, how to save them. When the time comes, the intelligence department will fully cooperate with you." Yu Qian and Xin Yu, who were called out, also knew that this matter was of great importance. They immediately nodded and said, "Yes, Wang. We'll go back and come up with a plan." "Yes, you must do your best to perfect it. Don't be afraid of spending money. Many of these people have real talent. If they can join Yangxia, it will be extremely beneficial for us to manage the entire southern Ming dynasty in the future." "Yes, we're clear." Yu Qian and Xin Yu gave their assurances again. Yang Qindong nodded in satisfaction and then left the pier with the black cavalry. Chapter 1644. Speaking of the boat, because they had received Emperor Ying's decree, their return speed was clearly faster. They had used close to 15 days to arrive and less than 10 days to return. They had arrived at the docks of the Suzhou prefecture. Once everyone was ashore, they immediately rushed to Ying Tian Mansion, the capital of the southern Ming dynasty, Nanjing Mansion. The officials were all smart people. Since they had returned to the southern Ming dynasty, regardless of what had happened to their mentality, what they needed to do now was see the emperor and then express their loyalty. Wang Jiqing, Wang Shang, and the others also got off the boat. However, for some reason, they felt that the air they breathed was not as fresh as before. It was to the point that everywhere they looked was not pleasing to the eye. The formerly bustling capital was now like a countryside in their eyes. There were flaws everywhere. In particular, when they entered the capital and saw the occasional rice fields on the sides of the streets, they felt a wave of disgust and discomfort. In comparison, the incomparably clean streets in Crimson City, as well as the public toilets 1,000 meters away, seemed more humane. Zhu Qijin met the members of the observer group, one by one, in the imperial palace. When he saw that everyone was extremely respectful when they saw him, for some reason, he did not feel as interested as before. He had a feeling that these people's smiles were too fake, as if they were acting with him. After the officials finished greeting each one of them, Zhu Qijin finally spoke. "Beloved officials, I presume that you have all gained a lot from this trip to Crimson City. Since this is the case, go back and write a memorial to see if there is anything we can learn or imitate. Then we can also make changes, okay? Your Majesty is wise. This official will obey." The officials replied in unison. Then, everyone left the imperial palace and returned home to write memorials. The next morning, in front of Zhu Qijin's dragon table, there were memorials written by the various officials. Zhu Qijin looked through them curiously. However, not long after, he angrily threw these memorials to the ground. It had to be said that these memorials talked about many things. For example, the Ministry of Personnel's memorial said that they were going to clean up the officials again. Anyone who was found to be corrupt would be heavily punished. For the sake of governance, officials were not allowed to engage in business. Anyone who took over extra land should also be returned. Anyone who had business in their family should also immediately stop to prevent collusion between officials and business. The Ministry of Revenue reported that they were going to reinstitute the business tax and collect heavy taxes. Regardless of whether one was a grand scholar, high scholar, or elementary scholar, they would still have to pay taxes when doing business. Everyone was equal. Only then would the wealth of the country be abundant. Only then would they be able to do what they wanted to do and benefit the people. The Ministry of Rights Memorial said that they wanted to set up a Ming newspaper to allow the common people to have a voice. This way, they could eliminate the existence of any undesirable things to the greatest extent. He also wanted to set up public schools, with the imperial court providing money so that the commoners could have books to study and develop their wisdom. The Ministry of Justice's memorial said that they wanted to expand the dungeon and severely crack down on the outlaws among the people, especially those officials with backgrounds, so that everyone would be equal. Only by giving the common people peace and order would the common people feel safe and happy. Only then would the common people truly support the Southern Ming dynasty. The Ministry of Works said that they wanted to open more factories. At the same time, they wanted to raise the social status of blacksmiths, carpenters, and craftsmen. Only then would they be able to better display their enthusiasm and build the Southern Ming dynasty. Even the imperial censor of the left, Shanglu, wrote a memorial saying that they wanted to clean up the governance of officials and reduce unnecessary expenses for the imperial court. For example, they wanted to reduce the expenses of the embroidered uniform guard, expand the area of the streets, build more public toilets, and let the common people develop the good habit of not urinating and defecating everywhere. They wanted to change the environment of the entire Southern Ming dynasty so that everyone would not have to live in a stinky environment. They could also reduce the occurrence of diseases, and so on. Looking at these memorials, if they were not asking for money, they were asking for people, or they were criticizing the Southern Ming dynasty's system and bad habits. How could Zhu Qijin not be angry? It was rare for him to throw a tantrum in the main hall for several hours. His shouts could be heard from time to time from the throne room, setting up a business tax and taking back the privileges of scholars. What does Qin Sun and the Ministry of Appointments want to do? Do they want us to become enemies with all the scholars in the world and cause chaos without a war? Set up a newspaper when school starts? What does the Ministry of Rights want to do? Could it be that if we don't set up a newspaper, we won't be able to hear the voices of the common people? Expand the dungeon? What does the Ministry of Justice want to do? Do we have so many bad people in the Southern Ming dynasty? What bright heaven and earth? Could it be that the skies of the Southern Ming dynasty are dark and gloomy? The Ministry of Works is even more ridiculous, raising the status of the craftsmen. Are they trying to change the current state of the Southern Ming dynasty? Won't this cause chaos? If the status of the craftsmen is raised, will the status of other people be raised as well? Especially this imperial censor. According to what he said, are we living in a stinky environment every day? The common people will get sick when they eat grains. This is originally a matter of heaven and earth. How can it be that the common people's production has anything to do with our current environment? After calling out the names of the various departments, Zhu Qijin overturned the dragon case in a fit of anger. The eunuchs at the side were so scared that they trembled in fear, not daring to say a word. Are they rebelling? All of them are pointing fingers at me. I think they have clearly been bribed by Yang Qindong. We don't believe that Crimson City is really as good as they say. How is this observing and learning? This is clearly eating other people's food and then coming back to bite their master. These people all deserve to be killed. They deserve to be killed. Zhu Qijin couldn't be blamed for being so angry. He had his subordinates give their opinions because he wanted to see if they had any gains. If there was, he could make appropriate changes without putting in too much effort. But now, how was this appropriate change? It was clearly overturning everything. The Southern Ming dynasty was also degraded by everyone. As the emperor, he naturally had no face. It would be strange if he wasn't angry. After venting his anger, Zhu Qijin stood there panting. The head eunuch Qian Sung Bao finally found an opportunity and hurriedly knelt on the ground. Your Majesty, don't be too angry. Your health is more important. It's not worth it for these officials. Yes, it's not worth it, Zhu Qijin said in a fit of pique. Then he said, Go, summon beloved official Chao to see us. The so-called beloved official Chao was the guard of the embroidered uniform guard, Chao Jixiang. The kneeling Qian Sing Bao naturally didn't get along with him, but this was the emperor's order. He didn't dare to stop him. He hurriedly gave a look to the eunuch at the side. At this moment, Qian Sing Bao was secretly delighted. He was thinking that the emperor had nowhere to vent his anger. Perhaps Chao Jixiang came at this time to eat melons. Chao Jixiang, who was on duty in the palace, was quickly found. He came to the throne room and knelt down. You all can leave first. Great companion, you can also leave. He glanced at Qian Sing Bao. Because of the appearance of Yang Qindong, this little butterfly, Zhu Qijin didn't experience being captured by Yes Hen. Thus, Chao Jixiang didn't appear to save his master. Now, his great companion became Qian Sing Bao's eunuch. The emperor summoned Qian Sung Bao and wanted to drive him away. Qian Sung Bao naturally wasn't happy. But at this moment, he didn't dare to disobey the emperor's order. He could only agree and leave. After he walked out of the throne room, he stood there in deep thought. Recently, every time Zhu Qijin saw Chao Jixiang, he was always mysterious. Even his great companion was on guard against him. This made him feel a sense of danger. If Chao Jixiang really replaced him, he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to have a good ending. Internal strife among eunuchs was often the fiercest. Those in power could get whatever they wanted. As for those who were stepped on, it was a fate worse than death. Eunuch Qian, why are you here? Why aren't you serving the emperor? Qian Sing Bao, who was in deep thought, was surprised when a voice came from behind him. He looked in the direction of the voice and saw the head eunuch of the empress Mao Mu. Although they were both head eunuchs, one served the empress, while the other served the emperor. The difference in status was too great. Oh, so it's eunuch Mao. What's wrong? Are you leaving the palace? Yes, the empress wants to weave cloth. Aren't I going out to choose? Mao Mu said with a fawning expression. In the entire southern Ming eunuch group, although Mao Mu carried the identity of head eunuch, his real power wasn't even in the top 10. This was all because the empress's temper was very good and she never cared about matters. The master was weak, so as the eunuch by the master's side, he naturally didn't have much power. But because of this, Mao Mu became a transcendent existence in the entire group of eunuchs. This person did not fight for fame or profit. Because of the empress, not many people were interested in his position. This made it seem that he had a good relationship with all the eunuchs, and they all seemed to be good. In terms of status, Mao Mu was far from them. But Qian Sung Bao was a very smart person. He definitely wouldn't casually offend people for no reason. So when he saw Mao Mu ask him, he chuckled and explained, It's like this. The emperor wants to meet Chao Changwei alone, so I came out to get some fresh air. Oh, so it's like that. It's just that Chao Changwei's thoughts are very big. It's not a good thing for such an ambitious person to always be by the emperor's side. After Mao Mu heard this, he first had a shocked expression on his face. Then he seemed to say this very casually. Just as he finished speaking, Mao Mu quickly covered his mouth with his right hand with an embarrassed expression. Between eunuchs, unless there was a life and death feud, they wouldn't speak ill of each other in front of each other. That was the behavior of a vile person, and it was shameful. Normally, if Mao Mu said this, Qian Sung Bao would even reprimand him. After all, he was now the head of the group of eunuchs. He had the obligation to maintain the unity of the group of eunuchs, at least on the surface. Chapter 1645. But now that he was angry, Mao Mu's words hit the bottom of his heart. He said with an angry face, That's right, I thought I was the only one who thought Chao Changwei was ambitious. I didn't expect that Mao Gonggong also thought so. Then I really have to be careful. Haha. Qian you are busy. I still have to go out of the palace. I will talk to Qian when I have the chance. Mao Mu didn't say anything this time. Some words were enough to be said once. Saying too much would have the opposite effect. Mao Mu left like this. Along the way, he took the token given by the empress and walked out of the palace with the 6 little eunuchs. Then he walked into the market and looked around. He went to a few shops but didn't buy any suitable cloth. During this process, no one noticed that while he was chatting with someone in a cloth shop, he had spread the news of Zhu Qizhen's rage and summoning Qiao Jixiang. In the entire Yangxie, there were no more than 10 people who knew that Mao Mu was Yang Hodong's spy. Among them, there was an intelligence team that was responsible for contacting him. Wang Shan, the head of the telecommunications department, was the one who knew about it. He was the one who reported everything directly to Yang Qindong. Even the head of the security bureau, Yang San, didn't know. Because of this, Mao Mu's safety was guaranteed. Even if Qiao Jixiang had joined forces with the Yangxie traitor, he still didn't know that Mao Mu was Yangxie's spy. When Mao Mu reported some of the news in the palace, Zhu Qizhen was listening to Qiao Jixiang's report with a serious expression. Your Majesty, the matter is like this. I have already contacted that person. He will lead Bugnam of Gojoseon to the ship. When the time comes, we will choose to take action at sea. At that time, no matter how great his ability is, he won't be able to escape. And good. That's right. Didn't you say there was a backup plan? Zhu Qizhen asked with interest. Yes, Your Majesty. I don't know if you still remember Shaowa Province's President Kuroda, who is the Navy General of Shaowa Province. When the Shaowa Province was destroyed by Yangxie, he had escaped with 100,000 soldiers. Over the years, although his strength has weakened, he still has 50,000 Navy elites in his hands. When the time comes, they will also appear and join us to kill Bugnam of Gojoseon. However, he also made a request. That was, if he wanted to reclaim the entire Shaowa province, he needed the emperor to acknowledge their existence. There is also that Yang Lu. He wants to inherit the throne after Bugnam of Gojoseon's death, but he said that he will definitely obey the emperor's management. Once he stabilizes his position, he is also willing to send troops to attack Ming and help the emperor unify the world. As soon as Qiao Jixiang opened his mouth, he laid out all the plans and the requests of the so-called allies. Hearing this, Zhu Qizhen frowned. After hesitating for about half an hour, Zhu Qizhen opened his mouth. We can agree to President Kuroda's request. Originally, we didn't need to pay too much attention to a small island country, but Yang Lu's request. Qiao Jixiang was the best at reading people's expressions. When he saw Zhu Qizhen's expression, he guessed something. He immediately said, Emperor, please rest assured. We can agree to his request first. After he stabilizes Yangxie and helps us deal with Ming, we can find an opportunity to kill him. Yes, that's what I mean. Bugnam of Gojoseon's appearance has already caused chaos in the great Ming dynasty for so long. If he dies, there can't be any more chaos. We can't fall for the same thing twice. Zhu Qizhen said with a satisfied expression. Just like that, the two of them, Zhu Qizhen and Qiao Jixiang, began to perfect the plan. This conversation lasted for nearly 4 hours. In the end, Zhu Qizhen ordered someone to bring in the meal and even rewarded Qiao Jixiang to eat with him. This made Qian Senbao, who was waiting outside, very envious. At this time, he felt that his position was in danger, but he didn't have any better ideas, because he didn't know what Qiao Jixiang was doing next. In the palace of Qian City, the telecommunications director, Wang Shan, brought the telegram sent by Mao Mu to Yang Qindong. After reading the contents of the telegram, Yang Qindong thoughtfully asked, Did you bring the copy of the telegram from Director Yang San? Yes. Wang Shan also sent the copy of the telegram that he had prepared in advance to Yang Qindong. After staying by Yang Qindong's side for so many years, Wang Shan was also used to the way the young master worked. Therefore, he would send a copy of the telegram that was related to reporting to him. After receiving the telegram from Yang Qindong 2 days ago, Yang Qindong carefully read it again. Then he put his right hand on the table and tapped it thoughtfully. He seemed to be thinking about something. After about the time it took to drink a cup of tea, he asked, "Did you find anything from the phone that I asked you to monitor?" "No, that phone is rarely used." Presumably, he also knows that some things are not safe to communicate through the phone. Wang Shan replied in a deep voice, "Well, he's grown up. He's so careful when doing things, but unfortunately, he didn't use it properly. Sigh. Since he chose this path of no return, he can't blame anyone for everything." "Okay, Wang Shan, go back. Remember, don't tell anyone about what happened today, not even Beta Persei." In the entire Yangtze, Yang Qindong trusted Tiger's Mane the most, followed by a few of his servants, and then Wang Shan. After all, as the head of the telecommunications department, he had access to core secrets. Therefore, although he was only a department head, Wang Shan's position in the entire Yang faction was extremely high. Very few people would not give him face. Wang Shan himself also understood that he could be where he was today, all thanks to Yang Qindong. He only needed to do things well, and his status would be stable. He nodded heavily. "Young master, please rest assured that no one else will know about this." Wang Shan was able to address Yang Qindong as the young master, just like the servants. This showed how much Wang Shan was valued. Wang Shan took his leave, leaving Yang Qindong alone in the palace study. He sighed. Some things did develop beyond his expectations. He had thought that someone would betray him. After all, when one's status was high and one's vision was broadened, one would have the motivation and ideas to move up. However, when something really happened and the person who betrayed him was someone he trusted very much, Yang Qindong still felt very uncomfortable. He did not know how long he had been sitting there. All kinds of memories and pasts between Yang Qindong and Yang Lu flashed through his mind. It was not until Huyen appeared in the study and brought a bowl of lotus seed soup in front of him that Yang Qindong came back to his senses. He smiled apologetically. "Look, I made you worry again." "No, I just wanted to see you. Don't think too much about it. We've already gotten enough. Even if we stop now, we won't have any regrets." Huyen walked behind Yang Qindong with a smile and gently massaged his shoulders. Feeling the care and gentleness, Yang Qindong reached out and patted Huyen's arm. "Good, optimistic spirit. Take it easy, take it easy. Ha ha ha." At this moment, Yang Qindong's mood seemed to be much better. In contrast, Yang Lu outside the small courtyard of the palace was very proud. As he expected, although when Jing had gone back, he had already convinced Yang. If the plan went smoothly, there should be a result soon, and he just needed to push the boat along. "Yang, you can go and do that thing now. This little one understands." Yang nodded in agreement, then turned and left. On the surface, after the southern Ming Kingdom's observation team left, Qiqian City became stable again. But in fact, there was an undercurrent surging, and a conspiracy was shrouding Yang Qindong's head. 2 days later, Yang went straight to the palace. His face was full of joy, as if he had done something great. On the same day, Beta Persei's mother-in-law, Badama, suddenly entered Yangtze First Hospital because of a serious illness. As the son-in-law, Beta Persei naturally had to perform well. He had already applied for 10 days of leave from Yang Qindong to serve his mother-in-law. In the palace, Yang Qindong saw Yang Qindong and said, "Fourth brother, it's done. I have already discussed with the commander of the Southern Ming Brocade Guards, Wenjing. As long as you, Bugnam of Gojoseon, are willing to admit it personally to the other party, and Chao Jixiang is willing to submit to Yangtze, he will bring all the Brocade Guards. Anyway, at that time, they will control the Southern Ming Palace. As long as my army arrives, we can take over the entire Southern Ming Kingdom with the smallest price." Looking at Yang Qindong's happy expression, Yang Qindong smiled. "Fourth brother, how did you discuss it?" "Oh, it's like this." Yang Qindong explained the plan that they had discussed. After an hour, Yang Qindong understood everything. After hesitating for a moment, he said, "Okay, this prince agrees. I will meet with Chao Jixiang outside the Wenzhou port. At that time, this prince will personally promise that as long as Chao Jixiang is willing to help me, Yang Xie, not only will he not be punished, he will also be rewarded greatly." Yang Qindong was very happy when he saw that Yang Qindong had agreed. "That's great. However, fourth brother, you must remember that in order to prevent the news from leaking out, you must not bring too many troops. It will not be good if the news is leaked." Is this fourth brother's idea or their idea? Yang Qindong asked after hearing this. However, his heart was beating very fast because if this was his fourth brother's idea, then he could not help but suspect whether Yang Yang was also involved. Fortunately, Yang Yang quickly gave the answer. "Of course, it is Chao Jixiang's idea. He is afraid that the news will be leaked. When that time comes, Ingzong will be prepared and he will not be able to complete his mission of controlling the imperial palace. Of course, with fourth brother's current status, even if he cannot bring too many people, he will still be accompanied by the black cavalry. After all, one must always be vigilant." Hearing Yang Qindong say this, Yang Qindong was finally able to relax. He nodded and said, "Okay, fourth brother, I understand the matter and I also agree. Next, you all can set a time together. When there is an accurate time, just inform sixth brother." Chapter 1646. That's the best, ha ha ha. Yang Qindong grinned. Obviously, he wanted to facilitate this matter. This was equivalent to him making a great contribution. At that time, no one would dare to look down on him. Who would say that he was relying on his relationship with fourth brother Yang Qindong? He wanted to prove that he was also a capable person. Yang Qindong agreed. The news quickly reached Yang Lu's ears. In the small courtyard, Yang Ying was so happy that he forgot himself. After all, after so many years of hiding, there was finally a conclusion to this matter. He felt that the burden on his shoulders was a lot lighter. Yang Lu, on the other hand, frowned in joy. "Yang Ying, why do you think he agreed so readily? Is there a trap in this?" "How can that be? Master has been hiding it very well. Besides, this matter was facilitated by Yang Yang. We didn't even show our faces. Even if there is suspicion, it won't fall on us. Master, you have to hurry up. It's best if you can fight to go to the sea with him. This way, our chances of winning will be higher," Yang Ying said without any doubts. "That's right." Yang Lu nodded. He felt that Yang Ying's words were very reasonable. He immediately put down the doubts in his heart and said, "This problem is not difficult. Right now, only Beta Persei, Yang Wu and I are in Qiqian City. Yang Wu has to guard the palace and keep an eye on the officials in Qiqian City. Beta Persei also has to keep an eye on the hospital. With Yang Qindong's habit of sympathizing with his subordinates, he most likely won't bring him this time. So, other than me, who else is more suitable?" After this analysis, Yang Ying also felt that this was the truth. He immediately said, "Then I have to congratulate Master. I'm afraid that it won't be long before this little one will call Master King." "Ha ha ha, well said, well said." Yang Lu thought that the southern Ming Emperor had promised him that once Yang Qindong died, he would inherit the position of Bugnam of Gojoseon. He immediately laughed happily. At this moment, Yang Qindong had already agreed to meet Chao Jixiang in private. The meeting at sea seemed fair to everyone, but Yang Qindong knew that there was a great conspiracy behind this seemingly fair meeting. If it was just him alone, he wouldn't be afraid of any conspiracy. It was still the same sentence with Datsang in hand. As long as they didn't kill him immediately, it would be impossible for them to kill him. But this time he was not alone. There were many black cavalry following him. He could not leave his brothers to the side. That would be irresponsible. If he did not bring the black cavalry with him, it would definitely arouse suspicion. In this case, it was necessary to make some preparations in advance, so he went to the Navy headquarters. Deputy Commander Gao Xiong had already left with the Navy, and not long ago he sent a report of victory. In front of the leading ships of this world, whether it was speed or firepower, they were several times stronger than the other side. The expansion of the Navy can be said to be very smooth, with the cooperation of the Navy's Cold Vanguard Division. So far, they haven't encountered any difficult bones. Yang Qindong even knew that even in the future, when the Yangtze Navy enters the Western Europe, there won't be any decent opponents. At this time, the West was far from being as developed as the future. There were even many places that didn't have their own civilization, let alone technology. With this opportunity, Yangtze can really unify the West. Otherwise, once they really start to rise, even if they send several times more troops, it will be difficult to accomplish. It can be said that now is the best time. Yang Qindong came to the Navy headquarters. Of course, he didn't ask about the Navy's overseas expeditions. If there is any news, someone will report it to him. He came here to make some arrangements for the meeting with Chao Jixiang. Although Yang Qindong has already seen that this is a trap, he doesn't know how many people the other side has, how many preparations, and how many people are involved. He didn't even let people inquire about it, fearing that it will alert the enemy. That is, Yang Qindong dared to take such a big risk without knowing anything. I'm afraid that if he said that he is second, no one would dare to say that he is first. This time, he came to the Navy to make the corresponding arrangements. Although he doesn't know the other side's means, he should prepare something that can't be neglected. Now in charge of the work here is the commander of the Navy's Cold Vanguard Division, Nie Tong. He is also one of Yang Xie's old men, and also one of Yang Qindong's trusted Navy generals. In the room of the commander-in-chief of the headquarters, Yang Qindong and Nie Tong sat facing each other. After that, gaze constantly scanned Nie Tong's body. Nie Tong's forehead was oozing with cold sweat. Today, with Yang Qindong's power, few people can face him calmly. Perhaps only people like Yu Qian, who have a lot of experience, can do it. Can I trust you? These words caused Nie Tong to stare blankly for a moment before he abruptly stood up. With an incomparably confident tone, he said, "Sixth young master, this subordinate is at your beck and call. I am willing to serve you at any time." From the results of the investigation of the Intelligence Department, the Navy's department is still very pure. There is a war to fight. There is something to do. There is no time to think about other things. Coupled with the investigation of the Intelligence Department, Nie Tong has won his trust. Very good, Commander Nie. This king asks you, what is the largest speed of the warship in the Navy? The so-called speed refers to the speed of the ship at sea. About 1 knot is equal to nearly 2 kilometers. For example, the speed of the Ming Dynasty ships is about 5 or 6 knots, which is equivalent to about 10 to 12 kilometers per hour. For example, the speed of the later Liaoning warship is 29 knots, which is less than 60 kilometers per hour. Because the Yangtze Navy ships use steam cars, now the maximum speed can reach between 10 to 12 kilometers per hour. Just in terms of speed, it is twice the speed of the opponent. Reporting to the 6th young master, the Navy dock has 10 fifth-level warships, 34th-level warships, hundreds of third-level warships, and other second-level and first-level warships. The third-level and above warships have reached a speed of more than 10 knots. In these years, the Navy's warships have been developed. In the past, only the commander-level commanders can command fifth-level warships. Because of the emergence of sixth-level warships, now it has become the division's exclusive use. And so on, the Navy has become many times stronger than before. Good. Hearing that there are so many powerful ships, Yang Qindong is very satisfied. He decided to use all of the third-level and above warships. Although it seems a bit exaggerated, one of Yang Qindong's rules of conduct has always been to not do anything. Besides, this time there is still a naval battle to fight. No one knows what Yang Qindong and Nie Tong talked about in the end. Everyone only knows that for more than an hour, the door of the room was not opened. In the end, Yang Qindong left with satisfaction. The Navy dock is a first-class military secret location. Without permission, even the Yang family servants have no way to get close. Based on this point, this trump card has become a secret, and there is no need to worry about it being known by others. The only one who really knows the plan is Nha Tong. The other members of the entourage only know that there is a sea mission. As for where they are going and what they are going to do, it will only be revealed at the last moment. After a trip to the Navy headquarters, Yang Qindong returned to the palace and went to the telegraph office. Except for the director Wang Shan, who is still inside, the other staff have been temporarily exiled for various reasons. Even if the servants around him can betray him, Yang Qindong really can't casually trust other people now. After leaving Wang Shan, the two of them operated the telegraph for a while. After doing this, Yang Qindong stretched and said to Wang Shan, "Wang Shan, this time you stay at home. You don't have to go out with me. No, this subordinate is not talented. I am willing to follow the young master until death." Wang Shan suddenly stood up and said with an unquestionable voice, although he now has a faint feeling that this sea trip will be very dangerous, he still wants to follow Yang Qindong. Everything he has today is all thanks to Bug Nam of Gojoseon. Now that there is danger, how can he shrink back? Okay. Thinking that many things can't be done without Wang Shan's help, Yang Qindong nodded and agreed after a little hesitation. Then he got up and patted Wang Shan on the shoulder and said, "If that's the case, you must be careful on this trip." "Yes, young master. This subordinate will be careful and won't let you down." After a series of arrangements, the next problem is the follower. Although Beta Persei took the time to come from the hospital to the palace and asked to follow, Yang Qindong still happily refused. "Beta Persei, your mother-in-law is sick. Now is the time for you to perform well. Besides, you have followed me many times. This time won't make a difference. Don't go this time, just let—" Yang Qindong's gaze moved between Yang Wu and Yang Lu, who were standing on the side, and finally fell on the latter. "Let Yang Lu follow the young master." "Yes." Yang Lu was overjoyed, but his face did not change. Instead, he looked at Beta Persei and promised, "Second brother, don't worry, I will be fine with the young master." Then, okay. Beta Persei saw that Yang Lu took the initiative to stand up, and this was the young master's idea, so he did not fight for it. After all, they were all servants, and he couldn't be the only one to enjoy the good things. He also needed to give others a chance. After deciding on Yang Lu's follower, Yang Qindong personally appointed the third captain of the Black Cavalry, Badeo Jiang, and asked him to bring 500 Longwei with him. The matter was settled. Regarding Yang Qindong only bringing 500 Black Cavalry, whether it was Beta Persei, Yang Wu, or Yang Lu, all showed faint doubts. Obviously, the Black Cavalry now had 5,000 people, and only 500 people were too few. Chapter 1647. Quite a lot. Yang Qindong chuckled. "The last time we went to Yunnan, we only had 500 Black Cavalry and there were no problems. Not to mention that this time, other than the Black Cavalry, we also have the Cold Vanguard Army. All right, Yang Lu, go back to the Navy headquarters and look for Commander Nha Tong to see who is suitable to accompany us. We don't need too many people, just a battalion of 500 people will do." Yang Lu, who was called out, was very excited and quickly agreed. He did not expect that Yang Qindong would value and trust him so much. At this time his mentality was shaken. Is it really good for him to go against his master who trusts him so much? Yang Lu did not immediately go to the Navy headquarters. Instead, he first returned to the small courtyard and saw Yang Ying. "Master, there is no turning back. Now that your matter has been revealed to the Emperor of the Southern Ming Empire, it is impossible to stop even if you want to. Besides, Yang Qindong has no one by his side right now, so he thought of you. Once the problem with Beta Persei is solved, I'm afraid he will kick you aside. Do you want to endure it again?" As the person Chao Jixiang sent to Yang Lu's side, Yang Ying naturally would not allow things to stop halfway. Hearing these words, Yang Lu nodded continuously. He just could not bear it. In fact, he did not have the intention to stop the plan. Otherwise, he would not have discussed it with Yang Ying and would have directly confessed to Yang Qindong. Now that he got the answer he wanted, he nodded vigorously and said, "That's right, this is my opportunity. I must grasp it." In the Navy headquarters, Yang Lu's figure appeared. Commander Nie Tong, who had already received the news, was personally accompanying him. Then, a battalion commander called Wang Nanhu was called. No one knew that Wang Nanhu had already been bribed by Yang Lu. This was also an accident. When Yang Lu was still managing the intelligence agency in the Southern Ming Empire, he received news about Wang Nanhu. This person was actually an early spy that the Southern Ming Brocade Guard had sent to Crimson City. However, what was unexpected was that ever since Wang Nanhu entered Crimson City and Cold Front, his attitude changed rapidly. He actually took the initiative to cut off all ties with the Southern Ming Empire and changed his name from Wang Hunan to Wang Nanhu. Even though there was only a difference of one word, it was very difficult for the Southern Ming Empire's embroidered uniform guard to find someone. The defensive measures of Crimson City were simply too strict. Who knew how many spies had been sent out over the years, but all of them either went missing or were captured and killed. If Chao, Jixiang, and Yang Xie hadn't started working together and provided this list, Wang Nanhu might have hidden for the rest of his life and become a real Yang Xie. Wang Nanhu was not the only one on the list. There were many others. However, most of them could no longer be found, or it could be said that they had hidden themselves very well. On the other hand, Wang Nanhu, whose name was reversed, was too easy to recognize, which was why Yang Lu had discovered him. It was because of this that Yang Lu named Wang Nanhu. Nie Tong had already received Yang Qindong's secret order to fully cooperate with Yang Lu's actions. Of course, he wouldn't stop him and agreed. After that, Wang Nanhu went to Yang Lu's small courtyard to report. Wang Nanhu didn't know that his identity had been exposed. Over the years, he had even forgotten that he was a spy of the Southern Ming Empire's embroidered uniform guard. It was because he had been very happy over the years in Crimson City. This was because he had confirmed the strength of the Yang Xie. He was also certain that only the Yang Xie could truly let the Han people live a luxurious life without worrying about food or clothing. Over the years, Wang Nanhu had also done his best to integrate himself into this life. Because of his efforts, he had now become a battalion commander of the Navy's Cold Front. It could be imagined that his future was bright and promising. When he came to the small courtyard with this thought, he first saw Yang Lu sitting on the chair. He knew that this was one of Bugnam of Gojoseon's most trusted servants. He immediately gave a military salute and said with an excited tone, "The Navy's Cold Front's 1st Army's 1st Division's 3rd Regiment's 2nd Battalion Commander, Wang Nanhu, has come to report. Leader, please ask for instructions." Your spirit is not bad." Looking at Wang Nanhu, who was standing there like a pine tree, Yang Lu chuckled. This was considered a compliment. Wang Nanhu, who was in his 30s, also laughed embarrassedly. But Yang Lu's next words made him suddenly feel as if he had fallen from heaven to hell. His whole body was covered in a layer of cold sweat. "But I don't know, seeing you like this. What will Chao Jixiang's guild think?" Yang Lu, who seemed to say this casually, stared at Wang Nanhu without turning his gaze away. Like a thunderclap in his mind, Wang Nanhu suddenly realized that he once had another identity, a secret agent of the Southern Ming Empire's embroidered uniform guard. At this moment, the past flashed through his mind like a movie, causing his face to turn red and white. Wang Nanhu was still struggling as his expression kept changing. He was betting that Yang Lu was trying to trick him. Perhaps this was a test before he was given a mission. Therefore, he tried his best to calm himself down. Then he chuckled and said, "Chief, what are you talking about? This subordinate doesn't understand." Seeing that Wang Nanhu was still struggling, Yang Lu laughed and said, "Is that so? That's right, Wang Nanhu can understand, but Wang Hunan should be able to write? Boom! Another thunderclap flashed through his mind. At this moment, Wang Nanhu no longer had any illusions. Even his real name was found out. This was no longer a coincidence. The other party already knew his true identity. Since the other party already knew, Wang Nanhu didn't deny it. Instead, he looked around and thought that there must be soldiers lying in ambush. He should be taken down soon. All right, there's no need to look around. There's no ambush. I'm the only one who knows your current identity. Of course. Yang Lu could tell what Wang Nanhu was thinking. He smiled casually and threw another bomb. Wang Nanhu, I know that you really want to cut ties with the Southern Ming Empire, so I can give you a chance. Not only will your identity not be known by others, but you can also be a true Yang Xie from now on. No one can talk about your past. What do you need me to do? Wang Nanhu's eyes were filled with hope again. You don't need to know now. When I need you, you just need to do as I say. Don't tell me you still don't trust me. Yang Lu's tone was profound. All right, then I'll listen to your orders. Wang Nanhu agreed because he knew Yang Lu's identity. He really hoped that his relationship with the Southern Ming Empire could be severed. Now that the opportunity was in front of him, he naturally had to seize it. Very good. Seeing that Wang Nanhu agreed, Beta Persei finally had a smile on his face. Next, gather your battalion and prepare to follow Bugnam of Gojoseon to carry out missions. Remember, you have to listen to my orders. You only have one chance to perform. If you don't seize it, don't blame others. Please don't worry, Chief. I will definitely seize the opportunity. Wang Nanhu said without hesitation. In the Imperial Palace of Crimson City, Yang Qindong appointed a commander named Wang Nanhu. When Yang Qindong heard this, he didn't say anything. He didn't even send people to investigate. He wanted to see how Yang Lu, whom he had groomed, was going to deal with him. And just in case, after all, there was no absolute victory or defeat in war. So using the remaining 3 days, Yang Qindong separately found the deputy commander of the army, Lung Song, and the commander of the navy, Nyatong, and announced the establishment of the military committee to them. The military committee, also known as the military committee, was equivalent to the cabinet of the civil officials. The members were initially decided to be 5 people. They were responsible for military affairs. The person directly in charge was himself, and the second in charge was Crown Prince Yangbo. In other words, if something happened to him, or if something urgent happened and he couldn't be contacted, Yangbo would be in charge of military affairs. At that time, even the cabinet had no right to interfere with military affairs. When Yang Qindong took Yangbo's hand and announced in the army headquarters, the first batch of military committee members were Tiger's Mane, Lung Song, Gao Xiong, Tian Yu, and Tian Hu. Deputy Commander Lung Song then sent Yang Qindong and his son out of the army headquarters. When the 2 of them arrived at the main street, Yang Bo said thoughtfully, "Father, are you leaving Crimson City again?" Yes. Yang Qindong didn't intend to hide it from Yang Bo. As his eldest son grew up, there were some things he needed to know. "Father, is it very dangerous this time?" Yang Bo raised his head. His voice was still a little immature as he looked at Yang Qindong and asked again. Yang Qindong didn't expect his son to have such observation and perception at the age of 11. He was very pleased. "Yes, it is a little dangerous, but fortunately, everything is under Father's control." "Then I'm relieved." A sincere smile appeared on Yang Bo's face. Looking at Yang Bo's adult-like appearance, Yang Qindong smiled and patted Yang Bo's head. He said, remember, as a king, you have to trust your subjects. But you also have to be careful. You also need to have your own judgment and not be swayed by others. Because of the difference in status, they might not really think about you. As long as you think it's right, just do it." "Yes, I'll remember." With Yang Bo's comprehension ability, he naturally couldn't understand everything. But this didn't stop him from remembering it and slowly understanding it when he returned. After the cabinet, the military committee was also established. Just like that, Yang Xie's two major institutions began to operate. Yang Qindong could also put down his burden and do what he should do. Chapter 1648. On the morning of the third day, Yang Qindong told Huyen and the others that he needed to go out and would be back in a few days. Then he walked out of the palace with firm steps facing the rising sun. Outside the palace, Ba Daojiang and the 500 black cavalry were already in formation, waiting for orders to set off at any time. According to fourth brother Yang Yang, this meeting with Chao Jixiang was a very secret matter, so they couldn't let more people know about it in case the news was leaked. So Yang Qindong really didn't tell anyone. Of course, this wasn't because he believed these words, but because he didn't need to let others worry. On the new pier of Crimson City, Yang Yang and Yang Lu were already waiting. Battalion Commander Wang Nanhu was also waiting with 500 cold vanguard soldiers armed with live ammunition. Fourth brother, young master, greetings Wu King Nan. All sorts of greetings followed. Yang Qindong's expression was calm as he looked at Yang Lu and asked, "Is everything ready?" "Young master, everything is ready. We can set off at any time." Yang Lu suppressed the excitement in his heart. "Good, then let's set off." Yang Qindong nodded and walked towards the nearest Class 5 warship. This time, in order to not attract attention, Yang Lu didn't bring a Class 6 warship. Instead, he chose the Class 5 warship in front of him. Soon, the black cavalry boarded one by one. Then, the ropes were retracted and the 3 warships left the pier. At this time at the pier, Niatong was leading the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd regiments of the 1st Division. Because outsiders were forbidden from approaching the pier, no one knew that they had left. In addition, the 4th Regiment was left behind to guard the pier. From the outside, it didn't look any different from before. On the sea, a total of 3 Class 5 warships were heading towards Fuzhou from Crimson City. At the harbor built by the Yang faction in Fuzhou, Chao Jixiang, dressed in casual clothes, walked into a medium-sized ship. The embroidered uniformed guards who had long since taken control of everything on the ship also set sail, heading towards Crimson City. Behind their ship, 2 ships that looked like fishing boats were tailing them. Relying on the high-powered binoculars in his hand, he seemed to be hanging several miles behind them. Because the distance was too far, it did not attract Chao Jixiang's attention. Or rather, Chao Jixiang's attention wasn't on his side at all. Ever since he entered the cabin, he had been looking at the radio in front of him. An intelligence agent sent by Yang Lu was fiddling with it. He knew nothing about radio stations. He only knew that it was very powerful and could transmit information from thousands of miles away. Chao Jixiang, who was sighing at the miraculous nature of this item, was waiting for the fish to take the bait. As for safety, he was not worried. Yang Lu had arranged everything. As for whether or not he would be cheated, he was carrying the imperial edict personally written by Zhu Qijin of the Ying sect. It was about Yang Lu succeeding Yang Qindong and becoming the Bugnam of Gojoseon. Presumably, there were people who were more anxious than him. If Yang Qindong didn't die, Yang Lu wouldn't be able to ascend the throne. Right, Yang Lu now had another name, Yang Shunming. This meant that he was willing to submit to the great Ming dynasty. It could be seen that in order to ascend the throne, Yang Lu was really going all out. As for whether or not Yang Lu would lie to him, it was basically impossible. He wouldn't tell such a big lie just to deal with her, would he? Furthermore, he even asked Yang Qindong to cooperate with him. Did he really think that he had an important identity? Eunuchs, in the end, weren't even considered complete people. They were even looked down upon by many people. Even if some people tried to curry favor with them, it was only because of the emperor's face. If they really left the emperor's favor, eunuchs wouldn't even be worth a fart. Chao Jixiang was waiting for news. Yang Qindong's level 5 warship was also heading towards the predetermined location. The level 5 warships Speed wasn't slow. It braved the wind and waves all the way, quickly approaching the destination. It was only 180 kilometers in a straight line. In the future, it would only take 80 minutes to reach the destination. It was impossible to be so fast now. However, it would only take 10 hours to reach the destination. Not to mention, the destination wasn't Fuzhou, but the sea outside of Fuzhou. Therefore, in just 8 hours, Yang Qindong and the rest arrived at the predetermined sea area. During the journey, Yang Qindong sat in the main cabin and was playing Go with Yang Yang. Ba Daojiang and the rest were watching and learning from the side. It was precisely because Yang Qindong loved Go that the few servants around him were not bad at Go. Even Beta Persei, that big brute, was quite accomplished in Go. There was no need to talk about Yang Lu. He had more time than Beta Persei and studied Go more deeply. At this moment, he was watching the game from the side. Yang Qindong's Go skills were also not bad. After coming to the southern Ming dynasty, he had looked for others to specially learn from him. However, when facing Yang Qindong, he still felt a lot of pressure. After all, after having Datsang, Yang Qindong had already changed. He learned everything quickly and was more proficient in it. Compared to the game of Go in the main cabin, outside the cabin, Yang Ying was talking to Battalion Commander Wang Nanhu. Battalion Commander Wang, we are about to reach our destination. In a while, everything will be done according to my instructions, understand? Yes. Yang Lu had already introduced Yang Ying to Wang Nanhu and told him to listen to this person's orders. Therefore, at this moment, Battalion Commander Wang did not know what was going to happen next. He also did not know that he was now helping someone to deal with Bugnam of Gojoseon. All right, bring your men to the bow of the ship to check. Leave the safety of this place to our men, Yang Ying said casually. Yes. Wang Nanhu replied again and turned around to take away the 33 soldiers guarding here. It was a full platoon of cold front soldiers. When he came, he knew that Yang Lu had arranged for other people to board the ship to take care of Bugnam of Gojoseon's safety. He also saw that they were wearing the Navy's cold front uniform. Because everything was arranged by Yang Lu, he did not ask any questions. There is a military rule in Yang Xie's army. Don't ask what you shouldn't ask. But Wang Nanhu did not know that these 33 cold front soldiers were not sent to protect Bugnam of Gojoseon, but to harm Bugnam of Gojoseon. They had been missing for a long time, and even Yang Xie's intelligence department could not find them. Among the 33 people, the leader was Kitamura and Yui Suzuki, followed by a group of Jonin and Chunin. In order to prevent being discovered by others, they deliberately put something in their shoes to make them look as tall as Han people. What happened outside, the Black Cavalry did not know, because not long after they boarded the ship, Yang Qindong strictly ordered the Black Cavalry to stay in the main cabin with him. This order was given in front of Yang Lu, and he also explained that the cold front soldiers should also be trained. So far, the 30 Black Cavalry soldiers on the main ship did not go out, which made it convenient for Yang Ying to do all the things outside. Yang Lu intentionally stayed in the main cabin to calm Yang Qindong's heart. He didn't make any small movements, and was also monitoring the words and actions of the other Black Knight Dragon Guards. A total of 3 battleships came, but most of the Black Cavalry soldiers and Cold Front soldiers were arranged in the other 2 battleships. Now there are only 30 Black Cavalry soldiers and a platoon of 33 Cold Front soldiers, led by Commander Wang Nanhu on the main ship. In contrast, Yang Lu arranged a total of 100 ninjas on the main ship. Just in terms of numbers, Yang Lu already has the advantage. The cautious Yang Lu did not act immediately. He knew the strength of the Black Cavalry, and the Cold Front soldiers were just temporarily kept in the dark. Once they know what happened, they will immediately become his opponents. Without full confidence, he will not act immediately. Yang Qindong seemed to be completely unaware of what was happening outside. He was still playing Go with his 4th brother, Yang Yang. In the end, he won 3 games. This is already giving a lot of face to his 4th brother. Yang Yang also knew what was going on. He couldn't help but laugh. Sixth brother, your fourth brother is not your opponent. You are still the best. Haha, fourth brother, you're too modest. If you weren't so impatient, we might have won this game. Yang Qindong seemed to be talking about the chessboard, but it also seemed like he was pointing out something in a roundabout way. When these words fell into Yang Qindong's ears, he didn't know why, but his face tightened. He always felt that Yang Qindong's words were pointing at something. Fortunately, at this time, Yang Ying walked into the main cabin and said, "Your Majesty, Chao Jixiang's ship has arrived." "Oh, he's here? Haha, that's great." Yang Yang got up, very happily. For him, being able to instigate the defection of such an important person like Chao Jixiang was naturally a great achievement. He could finally use practical actions to get rid of his status as Yang Qindong's fourth brother. For him to be where he was today, he also had real ability. "Yang Lu, Badeojing, you go out and take a look." Yang Qindong didn't get up. With his current status, perhaps if Zhu Qijin came, he would only go out and welcome him. After all, it was just a eunuch, it was really nothing. Yang Lu and Badeojing nodded in unison, then went out of the main cabin with Yang Yang. As expected, they saw a small boat sailing over. In the distance, Chao Jixiang, who was wearing clothes embroidered with fierce dragons, appeared in front of them under the protection of more than 10 imperial guards with embroidered spring sabers at their waists. That's right, it is Master Chao. When he saw the person, Yang Yang's smile grew wider. Although Badeojing had never seen the real person, he had seen many portraits in the past. In addition, Yang Yang had verified the identity of the other party, so of course he didn't suspect anything. He nodded, then turned to enter the cabin and said, "Sixth young master, it is Chao Jixiang. Let's go on board to discuss." Yang Qindong nodded. His expression didn't change at all. But if one looked carefully, one would be able to see that he seemed to have sighed softly. But no one knew what it was. That was a pity. Chapter 1649. A spiral staircase was set up on the ship to guide Chao Jixiang and the others onto the ship. The moment their bodies crossed, Chao Jixiang's gaze landed on Yang Lu. When he saw Yang Lu nod casually, a smile appeared on his face, and he seemed to straighten his back even more. With a total of 12 embroidered uniform guards, Chao Jixiang boarded the Yang family's 5th-grade warship under the protection of Wen Jing's command. Before entering the main cabin, he was stopped by Ba Daojiang and searched. Chao Jixiang was very cooperative with all this. He didn't bring any weapons with him. He probably knew that he wouldn't have a chance to assassinate Bugnam of Gojoseon even if he had a weapon. In the main cabin, Yang Qindong sat there unhurriedly, drinking tea. Yang Qindong excitedly led Chao Jixiang into the cabin. When he saw Yang Qindong, Chao Jixiang hurriedly bowed respectfully. "This servant greets His Highness Bugnam of Gojoseon." "Haha, Mr. Chao. I trust you have been well since we last met." Yang Qindong raised his head with a smile on his face. The two of them had crossed paths when they were in Baiming. At that time, Yang Qindong was a head above Yang Qindong. Now that so many years had passed, he was still a head above Yang Qindong. Chao Jixiang couldn't help but blush when he heard Yang Qindong's words. However, when he thought about how Yang Qindong might become his prisoner, he could step on Yang Qindong's head and do whatever he wanted. He suppressed his embarrassment and said, respectfully, "Bugnam of Gojoseon is wise and mighty. How can this servant compare to you? If there was a eunuch's greatest skill, it would be flattery. As long as you wanted to hear it, you would listen to it. Otherwise, how could you make the emperor happy and entrust them with important tasks?" Yang Qindong, who already knew this, didn't believe Chao Jixiang's words at all. Thus, his expression didn't change as he said, "All right, don't show your tricks in front of this prince. Let's get down to business." "Yes, His Highness Bugnam of Gojoseon," Chao Jixiang replied and stood there with a bitter expression. Chao Jixiang originally wanted to sit down and speak, but Yang Qindong didn't say anything. Naturally, he didn't dare to overstep his boundaries. At this time, he could only stand and speak his request. Among them, he emphasized how his brothers from the embroidered uniform guards would be placed if they joined Yang Xie. It could be seen that Chao Jixiang was well prepared. After he spoke, he didn't have any intention of stopping. He spoke one sentence after another, quickly attracting everyone's attention. At this time, no one noticed that Yang Lu had already left the main cabin. He looked at Yang Ying standing outside and nodded lightly. Then he returned to the main cabin as if nothing had happened. After receiving the signal, Yang Ying immediately waved at Bei Muraku and Yu Suzuki, who were standing outside the main cabin. The two figures quickly left. After a dozen breaths of time, a fragrance drifted with the wind and enveloped the Class 5 warship. All of this was done unknowingly without attracting anyone's attention. In the main cabin, Chao Jixiang hurriedly spoke for nearly half an hour. Finally, he said, "All embroidered uniform guards will replace the Black Cavalry and be responsible for Bugnam of Gojoseon's safety. Bugnam of Gojoseon will be under the protection of our embroidered uniform guards and head to Baiming to ask for forgiveness from the Emperor." Everything was fine before, and Chao Jixiang's attitude was also very humble. However, all of a sudden the topic changed, causing everyone to be shocked. Especially Yang, who was the middleman. His expression changed greatly. He looked at Chao Jixiang and said, "Master Chao, what are you talking about? Are you crazy?" "Crazy? Ha ha ha, you're the ones who are crazy. As subjects of the great Ming dynasty, you don't want to serve the emperor. You actually want to rebel and change the dynasty. You need to have the ability to do so. Now that I am here, you should quickly surrender without a fight." Chao Jixiang's previous submissive attitude was replaced by a maniacal laugh. "You're courting death." Ba Daojiang saw that someone was being impudent in front of the 6th young master. How could he let it go? He immediately reached for his waist and pulled out his blade. Then a loud bang sounded, causing everyone in the main cabin to be shocked. For some reason, Ba Daojiang fell to the ground. His entire body was as soft as noodles. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't muster up any strength. The sudden change caused the other Black Cavalry soldiers to turn pale with fright. They immediately pulled out their blades. As they exerted their strength, the figures fell to the ground one by one. Needless to say, the situation at this moment was no different from Ba Daojiang's. "What's going on? Guards, come and protect the emperor." Everything in front of him shocked Yang. When he came back to his senses, he immediately shouted. Then, the sound of footsteps came from outside the main cabin. Battalion Commander Wang Nanhu led a platoon of Black Cavalry soldiers and rushed over after hearing the shout. When they rushed to the door of the main cabin, because they used too much strength, they couldn't stop in time and crashed into each other. More than 30 people fell to the ground. Even the 95 style in their hands were thrown to the ground. No one had the strength to hold a firearm in their hands. The Black Cavalry soldiers were hit, and so were the Cold Vanguard soldiers. Everything happened so suddenly that Yang reached for his waist in shock. But when he exerted his strength, he felt dizzy. He felt as if all the strength in his body had been sucked out, and he fell to the ground with a thump. Everyone who made a move fell to the ground at this moment, unable to get up. On the contrary, Yang Lu and Chao Jixiang, who had been standing there without moving, were fine. They just looked at everything coldly. The sound of footsteps came again, and another group of people rushed in from outside the main cabin. Unlike Ba Daojiang and Wang Nanhu, these people didn't lose their strength. Yang Ying, who was at the front of the pack, was holding a porcelain bottle in his hand. He was the first to arrive before Yang Lu. "Master, this is the antidote for the bone-softening powder. Take it quickly," he said to Yang Lu with a fawning expression, and poured out a small black pill from the porcelain bottle. Okay, give Chao Jisheng one too. Yang Lu took the pill and swallowed it, and spoke to Chao Jisheng in a fawning manner, just like how Yang Ying spoke to him. Yang, Ba Dao Jiang, Wang Nanhu, and the others clearly saw what was happening in front of them. In exchange, they were shocked. After some time, Yang, who was lying on the ground, finally opened his mouth and said, Yang Lu, you slave, what are you doing? Do you know what you are doing? Of course I know. I am doing my duty as a subject. I am pledging my loyalty to the great Ming dynasty's emperor. At this moment, Yang Lu was like a ferocious tiger that bared its fangs, and he roared at Yang. With this shout, Yang was stunned. He couldn't accept this. Even if he was lying on the ground and couldn't move, he still felt like he was in a dream. It wasn't just Yang who couldn't understand. Ba Daojiang, the Black Cavalry, Wang Nanhu, and the Cold Spear Warriors couldn't understand either. Was this still Bugnam of Gojoseon's most trusted servant? What was he trying to do? Didn't he know that this was equivalent to betraying Bugnam of Gojoseon? This was an act of killing one's master. For a moment, everyone's first reaction was to quickly look at Yang Qindong, who had been sitting there motionless all this time. The trust they had for a long time made them place all their hopes on the king. Not only Ba Daojiang and the others, but even Chao Jisheng and Yang Lu also looked at Yang Qindong. They wanted to see what this person could do in the face of such a hopeless situation. Other than becoming a prisoner, what else could he do? Sigh. With a long sigh, Yang Qindong didn't let everyone down. He finally opened his mouth. With a sigh, Yang Qindong slowly raised his head. His face was very calm, and he still had the appearance of having the pearl of wisdom in his hand. He was not as surprised as Yang and the others. Instead, he slowly opened his mouth and spat out 3 words. Why? This question was obviously directed at Yang Lu. He was asking why Yang Lu betrayed him. Facing Yang Qindong's deep gaze, Yang Lu didn't know why, but he actually felt a little nervous. His heart started to beat faster, and he couldn't help but take a few steps back. This was the power of a dying tiger. Master. Yang Ying hurriedly stepped forward and supported Yang Lu, who was retreating. At this moment, Yang Lu felt that his performance, just now, was very embarrassing. But who could be blamed for this? For many years, he had been following Yang Qindong blindly. He had always been a servant. Now that he was suddenly going to be the master, he needed some time to adapt. Yang Lu, who had regained his footing, no longer looked at Yang Qindong's threatening gaze. Instead, he shouted as if he was venting his anger. Why, you still have the nerve to ask me? We are all servants, but Beta Persei is valued and is by your side every day. Yang Sangue is the director of the Security Bureau and has great power. Yang Si is the logistics minister and has great power. Even Yang Wu is your spokesperson in Qiqian City. No one dares to look down on you and has to curry favor with you. But what about me? With another loud shout, Yang Lu continued to vent his anger. I only married a few concubines and received some monetary gifts, but I was scolded by you in front of everyone. Then you threw me to the southern Ming kingdom and didn't care about me. Yang is suppressing my power, and Yang San is watching my every move. Most of the time, no one listens to what I say. We are all servants, and we all work for the Yang family. Why is there such a difference in treatment? May I ask, if I don't rebel against you, do I have any other choice? Chapter 1650. Under the loud roar, Yang Lu seemed to feel better. He then said, I know that you must think that I am useless, but that is only because you have not seen my ability. Now, the Southern Ming Emperor thinks highly of me and is willing to make me the new Bugnam of Gojoseon. As the saying goes, a gentleman will die for his friends. If you were me, what would you do? This sentence was not only directed at Yang Qindong, but also at Yang and the others. It was as if he was trying to absolve himself. When a person chose the path of betrayal, it was impossible to say that his heart did not suffer. Thus, They needed to find a reasonable excuse for themselves. This way, their conscience would at least feel better. Yang Lu was currently looking for an excuse for himself. Moreover, he was saying it in a dignified manner. As for whether or not he could convince others, he did not know. However, after saying this, his heart felt much better. After Yang Lu shouted, Chao Jixiang immediately said, "That's right." Yang Shunming abandoned the dark for the light and placed righteousness before family. He is a model of a loyal official. For this, the emperor has already issued an imperial edict. He ordered us to capture the traitor Yang Qindong and appoint him as the new Bugnam of Gojoseon to command all matters big and small in Yangxia. Using this opportunity, a golden imperial edict appeared in Chao Jixiang's right hand. He took it out and read in front of everyone. By the will of the heavens, the emperor decrees. The following content was exactly what Chao Jixiang had said. At this moment, Yang, Ba Daojiang, and the Black Cavalry all looked at Yang Lu, who was kneeling on the ground to receive the imperial edict, with eyes that could kill. It is still the same sentence. If looks could kill, Yang Lu would have been cut into pieces. Minister Yang Shunming thanks the emperor for his grace. Long live the emperor. After Chao Jixiang finished reading, Yang Lu stretched out his hands to receive the imperial edict. Then he kowtowed 3 times to the ground. At this moment, he vividly displayed the image of a servant. Bugnam of Gojoseon, please rise. Chao Jixiang quickly helped Yang Lu up with both hands. Many thanks, Mr. Chao. Yang Lu also repeatedly expressed his gratitude. The two of them displayed an expression of mutual appreciation. Good. Congratulations, master. Congratulations, master. Yang Ying, who was standing at the side, also began to flatter Lin Fan. As Yang Luqing worked for Bugnam of Gojoseon, it was obvious that his status would rise as well. By then, he would be able to do whatever he wanted in Yangxia. In the face of Yang Ying's congratulations, Yang Lu was naturally overjoyed and in high spirits. Just now, he had said a few words to express his excitement. A voice suddenly interrupted him. How unexpected! Even the name has been changed. Yang Shunming, he not bad. Looks like you're really made to be a servant. Needless to say, only Yang Qindong could make such a sound. If it was in the past, Yang Lu would have been scared out of his wits when he heard this voice. However, at this moment, with the imperial edict in his hand, it was as if he had really become Bugnam of Gojoseon. At this moment, there was not the slightest bit of fear. On the contrary, when he looked at Yang Qindong, who was seated there, he coldly snorted and said, "You're just a defeated general. Do you have any objections?" Let's not talk about whether I have any objections. However, have you ever thought that with just one imperial edict from Zhu Qijin, do you think the officials of Yangxia will recognize it and agree to it? Yang Qindong retorted sarcastically, "That's right. What you've done is shameful to all the people of the Yang clan. Just you wait. It won't be long before someone comes to take your head. You'll die without a burial ground." Jiang Baoqiang roared with all his might. Seeing that someone still dared to threaten him at this time, Yang Lu couldn't help but laugh loudly. He didn't seem to be angry at all. It was clear that he had already considered this matter. With a wave of his hand, Yang Ying received a radio from the ninja beside him and respectfully handed it to Yang Lu. After receiving the radio, Yang Lu skillfully turned it on and then began to broadcast the contents of the telegram in front of everyone. As he spoke, he also narrated the contents of the telegram. Yang Qindong has already been captured by the Southern Ming's embroidered uniform guards outside of Fuzhou Harbor. Anyone who receives this telegram is to submit a form of surrender to the Southern Ming Empire within 3 to 30 days. This way, you and your family will be safe. The emperor feels that everyone is working hard for the glory of the great Ming Empire and has only been deceived by vile people. Those who surrender are allowed to bring all their family assets and move to the capital of the Southern Ming Empire. Those who do not surrender within the time limit will be regarded as traitors of the Southern Ming Empire and can be killed by anyone. At the same time, Yang Qindong, Ding Lu of the family of the guilty official Yang Qindong, will be appointed as the new Bugnam of Gojoseon, commanding all of the troops under Yang Xie. In the 34th year of the Orthodox dynasty, Zhu Qijin of the Ying sect, after speaking, Yang Lu, who had also finished sending the telegram, turned off the radio and laughed heartily. How is it? This telegram has already been sent and can be received by anyone who has a telegram? Do you think that after such a thing has happened, there will still be people coming to find trouble with this prince? Every unit's radio had their own communication codes, but once a telegram was sent, even the Yang Xie's department or the army could receive it. It was easy to imagine what kind of chaos this telegram would cause after it was sent out. This was equivalent to the great Ming Empire soldiers running to various cities and shouting that the emperor had been captured by the enemy. After the telegram was sent out, Yang Yang, Badeo Jiang, and the others were naturally infuriated. They hated the fact that they were powerless right now and couldn't do anything even if they wanted to. At this time, on another level 5 battleship, not far away, Telecommunications Director Wang Shan also received the telegram. Although Wang Shan was allowed to follow Yang Qindong for safety reasons, he didn't board the main ship. Wang Shan also knew that this was the biggest concession the 6th young master could make. Considering that staying on another ship would ensure his safety and control of the situation, he agreed. Now that he saw the telegram, his expression changed greatly, and he instinctively wanted to reply with a coded telegram to explain everything. However, considering Yang Qindong's previous orders, he could only suppress this thought and send out a few secret telegrams. On the main ship, Yang Lu no. Yang Shenming was looking at Yang Qindong with a smug expression. He was looking forward to seeing his former master's panicked expression. It would definitely give him a great sense of satisfaction. Unfortunately, he was destined to be disappointed. This was because Yang Qindong's expression didn't change at all. Instead, he looked at Yang Lu as if he was looking at a clown. What? Is this all you've got? Isn't this enough? Yang Shenming instinctively asked. Do you think you can overturn the heavens when you're here? Come on, you can come in. Following Yang Lu's shout, Kitamura and Yui Suzuki in their Marine Cold Front uniform led a few jonins into the main ship. Bugnam of Gojoseon, how have you been? Do you still recognize us? Clown, you're just a loser. Yang Qindong's expression didn't change at all. Instead, it was filled with disdain, as if he was already prepared for the appearance of these two special jonins. Yang Qindong's expression didn't change, which greatly disappointed Yang Shenming. This was completely different from what he expected. He couldn't help but shout, What? At this time, you still want to be stubborn? You still want to act all high and mighty? Who are you trying to fool? That's right, you're already a prisoner. If you immediately kneel and beg my master, you might be able to suffer less. When Yang Ying saw that Yang Shenming was angry, he took half a step forward and said in a threatening manner, Oh, what do you think I am? Oh, right, you're the Uncle Ying that Mo Gui mentioned, right? Haha, I really underestimated you. To think that Yang Lu could get to where he is today, you must have contributed a lot, right? Let me guess, you shouldn't be as simple as Yang Lu's butler. If I'm not wrong, you should be a lackey of the Imperial Secret Service. Your real master should be this Chao Chonggong, right? Seeing Yang Ying jump out, Yang Qindong's voice was still filled with disdain. Yang Ying's expression changed constantly as Yang Qindong's words. He didn't expect that this Bugnam of Gojoseon was so powerful that he actually knew his background. However, he didn't know if there was real evidence or if it was just a casual remark. But no matter what the reason was, he couldn't let him go on. Yang Ying immediately shouted, interrupting Yang Qindong's words. What's wrong? At this time, you still want to drive a wedge between us? That's right, he's just spouting nonsense. Brother Yang, let's not talk nonsense with him. Let's cripple him first. Chao Jixiang couldn't bear it anymore. Some secrets couldn't be made public, otherwise it would affect his future plans. Shut up, Yang Shenming shouted. interrupting Chao Jixiang and Yang Qindong's words. He looked carefully at Yang Qindong and asked, "How do you know all this?" "Haha, not only do I know all this, but I also know that once something happens to me, Yang Xie will become chaotic. When he is no longer as strong as before, they will make a move on you. After all, you are a chess piece. Of course, you will be thrown away." Yang Qindong laughed. This Yang Lu was really stupid. He thought that he could control his own fate, but he didn't know that he was just a puppet that had become another puppet. If Yang Qindong could think of this, Yang Lu naturally knew as well. At this moment, he realized that his own fate was never in his control. He couldn't help but turn around and stare fiercely at Yang Ying. When he noticed the murderous look in Yang Lu's eyes, Yang Ying couldn't help but take 2 steps back. With a nervous expression, he said, "Master, I am already loyal to you. Don't listen to the instigation of this lowly person." "Haha, loyal? How was the previous Yang Lu disloyal in front of this prince?" Yang Qindong added in a timely manner. This also made Yang Lu, who was soft-hearted, harden his heart. "Kitamura, please help me kill him." "Don't worry. Your country's Princess Junko will be fine. I will definitely rescue her and send her to you." Chapter 1651. Don't. Yang Ying sensed that something was amiss. His expression changed drastically, and he instinctively wanted to dodge to the side. However, a blade flashed, and he realized that he could see his buttocks. Then Yang Ying, whose head had been chopped off, fell to the ground. He was as dead as a doornail. "Not bad, you're ruthless." Looking at Yang Lu's performance, Yang Qindong praised him. After dealing with Yang Ying, Yang Lu turned to look at Chao Jixiang. Chao Jixiang's face was pale. He was clearly frightened. "Chao Jixiang, I hope this is an accident. I hope there will be a next time." Yang Lu thought for a while and decided not to act. After all, he couldn't leave the support of the Southern Ming Empire. Naturally, he couldn't just kill Chao Jixiang. Chao Jixiang, whose expression had changed drastically and even wanted to shout for Wenjing to rush in, could not help but let out a long sigh of relief. He knew that this was not because the other party had let go of his plot against him, but because no one could leave each other now. He said gratefully, "Thank you for not killing me, Your Majesty." Chao Jixiang's attitude made Yang Lu very satisfied. He nodded his head lightly and accepted this gratitude. Then he turned his gaze and looked at Yang Qindong, who was sitting there. Yang Qindong didn't even move a finger. With just a few words, he killed his most trusted butler. It had to be said that just thinking about this method alone was enough to make one feel shocked. It was precisely because of this that this person absolutely could not be left alive. Although for the sake of the greater cause, he would not go so far as to kill the other party, but he still had to capture the other party alive and control him. Kitamura, Suzuki couldn't do it. The 2 special ninjas, who had been waiting for a long time, nodded at the same time and walked to Yang Qindong. This scene made Badeo, Yang, Wang Nanhu, and the rest anxious. However, they were poisoned by the bone-softening powder and couldn't use their strength. There was nothing they could do. Wait. At this critical moment, a voice rang out. Although it wasn't loud, it caused the 2 ninjas to stop. Only Yang Qindong could cause such trauma to Kitamura and Yu Suzuki. The words, "Wait a minute," had also come from his mouth. As soon as he spoke, Yang Qindong raised his head and looked at Yang Lu. "What's wrong? Was it that urgent? Or are you afraid of me from the bottom of your heart?" "Afraid of you? Why should I be afraid of you? Don't you know that you're the meat on my chopping block?" Although Yang Lu was very afraid of Yang Qindong in his heart, and this was a habit that had been cultivated over the years, he still stiffened his neck and said these words. "Since you're not afraid, let's just talk about it. Otherwise, I'm afraid we won't have a chance to talk in the future," Yang Qindong said unhurriedly. However, the more he acted like this, the more he could emit a calming aura that affected the people around him, causing them to not dare to act recklessly. "Say what?" Yang Lu was still reluctant to admit his mistake. Let's talk about Mo Gui. Oh, by the way, there's also the radio station with serial number 9826. Yang Qindong squinted his eyes. When he talked about this, there was even a slight smile at the corner of his mouth. Other than Yang Qindong, no one else knew that it was the radio station that Mo Gui thought was abandoned that attracted Yang Qindong's initial suspicion of Yang Lu. Every radio station had its own unique code, and people who didn't pay much attention to it wouldn't pay much attention to it. Yang Qindong didn't mention this to anyone else. He only intentionally recorded the code when he distributed the radio stations. At first, it was just to identify people by the station and the code. However, he didn't expect that this code would actually help him find the traitor. Yang Lu did know about this, and when he heard Yang Qindong mention the code 9826, he was still confused. What do you mean? Looking at Yang Lu's confused expression, Yang Qindong laughed. You've been with me for so many years, but you haven't learned much. All right, then I'll tell you. Every radio station has its own unique code, and Mo Gui's code was 9826. When I brought people to attack the 3 provinces, Mo Gui saw that he had no chance of winning, so he committed suicide and buried the radio station. What he didn't know was that even though he destroyed 80% of the radio station, the code was still clear, so Yang Qindong deliberately dragged out his words, and, as expected, Yang Lu's expression changed. He exclaimed, "So you secretly investigated this radio station and found out that it was me?" "That's right." Yang Qindong looked at Yang Lu approvingly. "You're not that stupid. You just learned about it a little late." It was through this code that we found out that this radio station was allocated to Director White Fox of the CIA stationed in Nanming. However, that White Fox had already been bribed by you. She is now your mistress and is working for you. I have to say, you're very careful. In order not to reveal any flaws, you didn't find an excuse to apply for a new radio station. Instead, you borrowed White Fox's radio station and gave it to Mo Gui. You and White Fox are sharing a radio station, right? Listening to Yang Qindong's analysis, even though it was January 1468 and the weather was a little cold at sea, Yang Lu still broke out in a cold sweat. He was indeed very careful. In order not to attract attention, he dismissed Yang Ying's idea of finding an excuse to get a new radio station. Instead, after discussing with White Fox, he gave her radio station to Mo Gui. This way, he didn't have to worry about being exposed and people suspecting him, so he could lay out his plans. What he didn't expect was that there was a unique code on the radio station. Damn it! Why didn't he check it carefully before? He had seen the code before, but he didn't think much of it. In the future, it would be the same on every radio station. However, he didn't know that it was his carelessness that exposed him. If he was exposed at that time, would he have already attracted Yang Qindong's attention? Could it be that the other party had seen everything that he had done? If that was the case, didn't that mean that everything he did was within his expectations? No, that's impossible. Another voice shouted in his mind. If that was the case, how could Yang Qindong get involved? How could he take the risk? He was now Bugnam of Gojoseon. He had more territory and people than the great Ming dynasty's emperor. How could he jump into a trap knowing that it was a trap? At least, if he had that position, he definitely wouldn't take the risk. In his mind, Yang Lu, whose thoughts were flying, couldn't understand. At this time, Yang Qindong spoke again. After finding out that it was the radio station that White Fox used, they naturally found you. This also explains why White Fox's radio station was no longer in her hands, but she could still receive news from the CIA headquarters. However, this prince didn't touch her because this prince wanted to see what you wanted to do and what you would do next. Thus, you sent ninjas to assassinate Yang Yang, and then came out to play the hero to save people. This gave you a legitimate excuse to enter Kaohsiung City, right? These words struck Yang Lu's head like a bolt of lightning, causing the cold sweat on his neck to continuously flow out. Yang Qindong continued. After returning to Kaohsiung City, you immediately tried to rope in Yangwu. You didn't even hesitate to give a woman named Cui Xiao to him. You even made Cui Xiao the steward of the 8th Madam's womb. You wanted to divert the trouble and make this prince think that the assassination of 4th brother was ordered by the 8th Madam. This prince was naturally aware of this, but I was curious about what else you wanted to do, so I didn't expose you and continued to watch you act. Speaking of which, you are indeed ruthless. Seeing that Yang Wu didn't fall for your trap and wouldn't be your spy in the palace and harm this prince, you thought of another way. You used this prince's 4th brother to trick this prince into coming to the sea. You contacted Chao Jixiang, which led to this scene. In order to be able to follow me closely and control the situation at all times, you even sent people to poison your beta Persei's mother-in-law, causing her to be poisoned and hospitalized, so that she wouldn't have the chance to follow this prince out to sea. In this way, you became the best candidate, right? Huh? Yang Qindong laughed, but what you didn't expect was that the maid who served beta Persei's mother-in-law, Alian, was originally recommended by White Fox. Then why didn't you think about it? Since White Fox was the focus of suspicion, how could the person she recommended not be guarded against? So the so-called poisoning incident was fake. The food provided by Alian had long been swapped. It was just to see what else you wanted to do. So this prince didn't expose all of this. After saying this, the smile on Yang Qindong's face disappeared and was replaced by disappointment and anger. What this prince didn't expect was that you actually wanted to replace me and collude with the Southern Ming Emperor to destroy the Yangtze's overall situation. To be honest, I can understand how you treat this prince. Whether it's because you're jealous or disappointed that you attacked this prince, it's also a reaction of human nature. But who would have thought that you would be so despicable and want to harm the entire Yangtze? Do you know how many people died and how much effort we put in to achieve today's situation? Suddenly, Yang Qindong's voice rose several octaves as he shouted, "What's the difference between you and an animal? Do you think you can still be forgiven by doing this?" Yang Lu, who had long been deranged by this analysis, fell to the ground with a plop. Then he said with a terrified expression, "No, this is impossible. You can't know everything. This is impossible." Chapter 1652. If you don't want people to know, then don't do it in the first place. Yang Qindong shook his head and said as he stood up. When Yang Qindong stood up, both Kitamura and Yui Suzuki couldn't help but take a step back. As the saying goes, a person's reputation is like a tree's shadow. Yang Qindong had always brought them great pressure, like a heart demon. It wasn't something that would disappear just because you didn't think about it, and it wasn't something that could be forgotten just because you wanted to. Yang Qindong was already dumbfounded. He didn't know what to do with Yang Qindong's analysis. Chao Jixiang also widened his eyes in shock at these words, but he was still rational. Although he knew that things wouldn't go as smoothly as he thought, at least the Yang Qindong in front of him was real. That was the most important thing. As long as he could control Yang Qindong, then the situation would still be under control. Even if the other party had a backup plan, he wouldn't have the chance to show it. So when he looked at Yang Qindong, his eyes were filled with killing intent. He had to control this person immediately. Then he would be in an invincible position. Where's Wenjing? Why aren't you going to capture the traitor Yang Qindong? After the shout, Wenjing rushed in with a few embroidered uniform guards from outside the main cabin. Then, the embroidered spring saber drew a beautiful circle in the air and went straight for Yang Qindong. There were many rumors that Yang Qindong was not only unparalleled in intelligence, but his personal strength was also unparalleled in the world. Normally, they wouldn't dare to make a move. But now, the fragrance of the bone-softening powder had already taken effect. Yang Qindong was probably a soft-footed prawn, unable to resist. With such confidence, one of the embroidered uniform guards swung his saber. But it was obvious that he didn't use his full strength, and the way he attacked wasn't the kind that would take a life. His target was the neck, and he wanted to knock him out. Scram! With a harsh shout, Yang Qindong stretched out his leg and struck the imperial bodyguard's chest. Under the powerful kick, it directly hit the person's chest. Immediately, the sound of bones cracking rang out, and the embroidered uniform guard's chest naturally caved in. How is this possible? The embroidered uniform guard, who had charged forward quickly but retreated even faster, landed beside Chao Jixiang. Seeing the blood bubbling out of the corners of his mouth, it was obvious that he was breathing in more than he was breathing out. Everyone in the room was so shocked that their eyes widened. Shouldn't he have been poisoned by the bone-softening powder? But why was nothing wrong with him? No one knew that Yang Qindong's biggest secret was in the big warehouse. It was just a bone-softening powder. When he felt it, it was led into the big warehouse and completely digested. How could it be a threat to him? It was because of the big warehouse that Yang Qindong dared to enter the tiger's den with a fearless face. The reason why he didn't make a move immediately was because he was waiting for the Wolf Fang Special Forces to make a move. After all, he wasn't the only one on the ship. There were also 4th Brother Yang Yang, Badeo Jiang, and the other Black Cavalry, as well as the brothers from the Navy's cold front. And just when Yang Qindong kicked an embroidered uniform guard to death, there were sounds of fighting outside the main cabin. Needless to say, the Wolf Fang Special Forces had arrived. They had followed Chao Jixiang all the way from the Fuzhou Pier. In order to let Yang Qindong boldly carry out his plan, Yang Qindong didn't ask where exactly he would meet Chao Jixiang. He only knew that it wasn't far from the Fuzhou Pier. From this information, the Wolf Fang Special Forces analyzed that Chao Jixiang would depart from the pier and follow him all the way. It was indeed correct. There were already sounds of fighting outside. Knowing that things weren't going well, Chao Jixiang's face changed as he urged Wen Jin and the others to make a move. At the same time, he pulled the frightened Yang Qindong and said, "There's no time. You must let your ninjas make a move immediately. If we can't control Yang Qindong, we will all die here." "Yes, let's do it now." Yang Lu seemed to have come back to his senses as he shouted at Kitamura and the others. Originally, Kitamura and Suzuki didn't think much of Yang Lu. In their eyes, this person was just lucky to follow a good master. However, if they wanted to develop and even revive the small Japanese province and make it independent into a new Japanese empire, they needed financial support. On this point, Yang Lu happened to be able to satisfy them. In addition, they knew very well that if Yang Qindong didn't die, all their ideas would just be a dream. At this moment, they shouted and pounced on Yang Qindong. He had already reached the Grandmaster level. It was quite difficult to hurt him face to face. Although Wen Jin and the other brocade guards had also practiced martial arts since they were young, their methods were not bad. However, when faced with Yang Qindong, it was still not enough. After a few punches and kicks, the brocade guards were all dead on the ground. Even Wen Jin didn't hurt Yang Qindong at all. Instead, the embroidered spring sword in his hand was snatched away and he was stabbed in the neck. This time, Yang Qindong used 20% of his strength. After the sharp blade cut through, Wen Jin's head and body moved. A headless body fell at Chao Jixiang's feet, scaring him and making him jump and scream. Although it was true that he was the factory manager of the Southern Ming brocade guards and had killed countless people in his hands. However, that was based on the fact that he was strong and the other party was weak. If they were to talk about martial arts, he was just a eunuch. Even a cold warrior could kill him 4 or 5 times. Now that he saw his trusted aide Wen Jin die in front of him, his expression changed drastically. He instinctively jumped behind Yang Lu. In the main cabin, the death of Wen Jin and the others did not end the battle. When Kitamura and Suzuki Wei rushed towards Yang Qindong from left and right, this was the most exciting part. The blades of 2 ninja swords slashed from left and right, carrying a threatening killing intent. Those who didn't have enough eyes could only see the flash of the blades. As expected of special ninja, their foundation was very good and their strength was not bad. In addition, they didn't have to worry about food and drink in the past few years. As long as they trained wholeheartedly, not only did they recover from their original injuries, but their own strength had also become stronger. Now that the two of them were working together, they had a lot of momentum. The blades flashed without the slightest bit of fanciness. The first thing they did was to take a person's life. Obviously, they didn't want to capture Yang Qindong alive at all, but to kill him. The two blades slashed from left and right, suddenly changing from a slash to a slash. The change in the path was so fast that Amadeo Jiang and the others who were lying on the ground couldn't help but cry out in alarm. Yang Qindong was already prepared to fight back. Although the attacks of the two special ninjas were sharp, they weren't really in his eyes. After all, he was already prepared. What he didn't expect was that the other party would change their moves midway, which made his original preparations useless. Seeing that the blade was about to pass through his body, bringing along a piece of flesh and blood at the critical moment of life and death, Yang Qindong suddenly turned sideways and at the same time pulled in his abdomen. In the next moment, only a pie sound was heard. The ninja blade had already cut open the green robe in front of his body. Meng Fei's blade was almost close to the skin of his abdomen, and he could even feel the coldness of the blade. At the last moment, Yang Qindong relied on his nimble footwork to dodge this fatal blade. Taking advantage of the moment when Kitamura's attack was about to end, he raised his leg and kicked out. As soon as the kick came out, the wind blew. As the saying goes, one can know the power from the sound. Just from the momentum of this kick, one could tell how powerful it was. Kitamura, who was the target of the attack, felt the immense pressure, and with a cry of surprise he retreated. On the other side, Suzuki Yui, seeing her brother being threatened, wasn't willing to let it go. She suddenly slashed her blade at Yang Qindong, wanting to force him to save her. This slash was quite ferocious. Perhaps even a wooden stake as thick as a bowl would be sliced in half by it. Facing this blade, Yang Qindong's mouth flashed with disdain. Then his right hand moved forward, and the embroidered spring blade met Yui Suzuki's blade. At the same time, he didn't retract his right leg, and it was still aimed at Kitamura's chest. For a moment, Yang Qindong's body formed a character. His left leg didn't move, and his right leg kicked forward. His entire body leaned back, and the scene looked very beautiful. Clang! The blade collided with the blade, and a crisp sound was heard. When the powerful arm strength was transmitted from the embroidered spring blade to the ninja blade, Yui Suzuki felt her right arm go numb, and she almost gave up her blade and retreated. While forcing Yui Suzuki back, his right leg also landed on Kitamura's chest. However, the opponent had the strength of a special ninja, and his body was abnormally agile. In the end, he still managed to dodge. But even so, the wind from his leg still brushed past Kitamura's chest, tearing his clothes and leaving a bleeding wound on his chest. Just the wind from his leg could cause such damage, making Kitamura and Yui Suzuki speechless. In the past, they only knew that Yang Qindong was very powerful, but no one knew how powerful he was, because no one could really force him to use his full strength. But now they finally had a clear understanding in their hearts. Such an opponent wasn't someone they could deal with. Because they were on a ship, there was nowhere to retreat. Ninjas were indeed powerful, and they could rely on many things and the surrounding environment to hide themselves and achieve a one-hit kill. But this didn't mean that they weren't afraid of water. In this vast sea, once they entered the water without any protection, who knows how long they could last? There was no way out. Although Yang Qindong was very powerful, Kitamura and Yui Suzuki still had to make a move and continued to attack Yang Qindong from left and right. But this time, they were clearly at a disadvantage. Just now, Yang Qindong just wanted to see how strong these two were, so he didn't give them any pressure. Since he saw through these two's methods, how could he give them a chance to perform? Yang Qindong moved. No one saw exactly how he did it. They only saw a figure flash to the side of the north village. Then a sound of la la entered their ears and the figure disappeared. Chapter 1653. After that, it could be seen that Bei Quanku, who had been kicked by the kick, had a big hole in his chest. His large intestines and small intestines were flowing out from that hole. Even if Bei Quanku tried to block it, he still couldn't stop it. After a successful move, Yang Qindong's gaze turned to Yui Suzuki. At this moment, Yui Suzuki's expression changed greatly. There was only one question in his mind. Why couldn't he see Yang Qindong's figure? It was said that ninjas were the fastest, but now it seemed that the advantage they were most proud of was not as good as the opponent. How could they fight? Just when Yui Suzuki's mind was in a mess, he suddenly felt a pain in his neck, followed by blood splattering everywhere. The ninja sword in his hand fell to the ground, and he instinctively raised his hands to block the wound on his neck. However, he couldn't do it and could only let the blood flow out. In the end, he fell to the ground with a plop and soon died. At this time, the people of Japan were not like the people of the future, who worshipped Amaterasu and were afraid of being beheaded. However, the scene of blood splattering everywhere still brought a strong sense of shock to the onlookers. It made their minds scattered, and there was only fear in their eyes. The two special ninjas fell at the feet of Yang Qindong in just 2 rounds. Whether it was Yang Lu or Chao Jixiang, they realized that they were wrong at this moment. They were very wrong because they didn't know how strong their opponent was. If they wanted to trample him under their feet, they would only be humiliating themselves. After Yang Qindong killed Bei Siyuan, when Jing and the others, he saw that there was no one in the main cabin who could threaten him. He walked to the dead Yang Ying and searched his body. He found the antidote in the porcelain bottle and threw it to Ba Daojiang, who was lying on the ground. When he stood up, the sound of gunfire could be heard from outside the cabin. Needless to say, it was the Wolf Fang Special Forces who were slaughtering. The ninjas outside were not easy to deal with, especially in the dark. Even the Special Forces would have to pay a price if they wanted to take care of him. However, it was daytime, and with firearms in hand, those people were no longer a threat. After Ba Daojiang and the other black cavalry soldiers took the antidote, they immediately felt their strength return. They quickly got up and tied Yang Lu and Chao Jixiang up tightly. Yang stepped forward and punched and kicked Chao Jixiang, causing him to repeatedly beg for mercy. Yang Lu, on the other hand, was very unyielding and did not make a sound. This result was completely out of his expectations. It was originally a flawless plan, but who would have thought that Yang Qindong would have seen through it long ago? He was just waiting for Yang Qindong to use all his trump cards, and then he would be caught in one fell swoop. Thinking that everything was over, and that it would be difficult for him to even die, Yang Lu could no longer see any hope in life. Even if Yang was kicking him, he didn't seem to feel any pain. 6th Young Master, everything outside has been settled. The captain of the Wolf Fang Division, Tai Hu, came out of the main cabin with a murderous aura. When he saw Yang Qindong standing there as if nothing had happened, he couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. Then he reported the situation outside. Very good. Yang Qindong looked at Tai Hu and smiled. At this moment, the captain of the Wolf Fang Division, Skinny Monkey, suddenly walked over with a frightened expression on his face. 6th Young Master, things are not good. There are many ships north of us. I don't know if they are coming for us. Not at all, not at all. Yang Lu, who looked like he was about to be captured, suddenly came back to life. He actually broke free from the black cavalry and rushed to the window of the main cabin. When he saw that there were countless black dots in the distant sea, he couldn't help but laugh wildly. Ha 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 ha, got his eyes. Do you see? Do you see? Those are the naval forces of the Japanese Empire. They are coming. They are coming. That's right. Those are the naval forces of the Japanese Empire. General Kuroda must have arrived. Unknowingly, Chao Jixiang also squeezed over. Then, The two of them cheered as if they saw the hope of rebirth. Then, Yang Lu suddenly turned around and looked at the crowd. Do you see? Those are the naval forces of the Japanese Empire. There are 50,000 of them. They are here to capture you. How about this? Let me go immediately and I can still save your lives. Otherwise what? A mere 50,000 naval forces dare to be arrogant in front of this king? Look carefully who else is beside them. Yang Qindong snorted. At this time, Yang Lu still dared to be so arrogant and even dared to threaten him. This made him very angry. After all, being betrayed by the most trusted person, this kind of feeling was hard to accept. When Yang Qindong said this, the others couldn't help but look at the battlefield. Then they noticed that there were more black dots in the periphery of the black dots. Then the sound of cannons sounded. Flames appeared on the distant horizon. That was the reflection of the sinking of the warships. Needless to say, Nha Tong led the Navy's Cold Vanguard Division to attack. They were riding on a level 6 warship. Not only was the warship faster, but it was also equipped with more cannons. It was easy to deal with the 50,000 naval forces that could only fire solid bullets. With a bang, Yang Lu fell to the ground. At this moment, he finally understood that all his plans were within Yang Qindong's calculations. This time he completely failed. Chao Jixiang was not any better. He sat on the ground with a thump. His face was also ugly. Right now, he was not only worried about his own safety, but also about the negative impact this incident would have on the Southern Ming Empire. Bugnam of Gojoseon, Yang Qindong, would not let this matter go and attack the Southern Ming Empire? Yang Qindong watched as the Japanese ships sunk one after another. His gaze was calm. To be honest, he didn't know that Kuroda, who had escaped for many years, would appear. He instinctively thought that Yang Lu and Chao Jixiang would have other means, so he made the corresponding preparations. He didn't expect that he would hit the jackpot. This was good, as another problem was solved. Yang Qindong didn't need to worry about the distant naval battle. Just like the Army's 1st Cold Vanguard Division was the Army's teaching team, the Navy's 1st Cold Vanguard Division was also the teaching team of the Navy. They were all left behind to protect the safety of Kiosk City. The only difference was that the 1st Cold Vanguard Division had a more important mission, and that was to not allow any ships from other powers to approach Kiosk City's port without permission. They didn't even let him get close to them. How powerful was this naval force? If they couldn't even deal with the Japanese who had already lost their homes, then they might as well retire and go home to raise their children. In a short while, the other two ships had also approached the main ship. Wang Shan led the Black Cavalry and the Cold Vanguard Division onto the main ship. Yang Qindong only glanced at Wang Shan. When he saw the other party nod at him, he knew that the necessary arrangements had been made. He then turned to look at the battalion commander, Wang Nanhu, who was being held down by the Black Cavalry. Speak. What exactly did Yang Lu have on you that made you cooperate with him so much? Your Majesty, I really don't know about Brother Yang Lu. No, Yang Lu will rebel. However, he does have something on me. My real name is Wang Hunan. I was sent to Yangxia by the Southern Ming Dynasty in the early days. Wang Nanhu was very straightforward and explained everything that had happened to him from the beginning to the end. Then he said, everything happened because I didn't recognize people properly. Also, I have a problem with myself. It has nothing to do with my brothers. Please punish me, Your Majesty. I am willing to commit suicide as an apology. Wang Nanhu didn't have any intention of harming Yang Qindong. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been drugged by the Tendon's powder. However, he had done something wrong and his background wasn't clean. Therefore, Yang Qindong couldn't let him continue to hold an important position. Instead, he said to Yang, detain him first and let the intelligence department investigate him. Also, see if there are any more people like him in the army. The Cold Vanguard Division is our foundation. We can't let anything happen to it. Otherwise, it would be fatal. Yes, sixth young master, Ba Dao Jiang quickly replied. With a wave of his hand, the black cavalry came forward and took Wang Nanhu away. At the same time, in the southern Ming dynasties in Tianfu district, a group of people was quickly gathering at a small shop selling rouge. When they saw that the shop's door was closed, they didn't stay for long. They quickly climbed over the wall and entered. Judging from their swift movements, they were a well-trained team. In the backyard of the rouge shop, White Fox, the director of the Yangtze CIA station in the southern Ming dynasty, was pacing back and forth. She was anxious. This rouge shop was a branch of the CIA. White Fox usually took care of the shop. In reality, she was there to gather information and report back to the CIA headquarters. However, today, White Fox was obviously uneasy. She knew that today was the day Yan Lu would make his move. Whether he succeeded or not, it would all depend on today. Unfortunately, her radio station, the one with serial number 9826, had been borrowed by Yan Lu. Now she could only wait for news. Thud, thud. Suddenly, a strange sound came from outside the door. It sounded like someone had fallen to the ground. White Fox was capable enough to be the director. When she heard the sound, she immediately shouted, "Who is it? What's going on?" As soon as she finished speaking, the door was pushed open from the outside. A few unfamiliar men walked into the room, forcing White Fox to take a few steps back. This sudden turn of events gave the White Fox a bad feeling. However, she suppressed the panic in her heart and asked loudly, "Who are you people?" "This is the Tianfu district. Aren't you afraid that the authorities will send people to arrest you for trespassing?" "All right, Director White Fox. You don't have to pretend anymore. You've committed a crime. Come with us now." A figure walked out. White Fox couldn't help but take a few steps back. Naturally, she recognized that the person who spoke was someone she had met before. Although she did not know his name due to confidentiality regulations, this person had always been by Chief Yongsan's side. Now that he was here, it was clear that he was here. Chapter 1654. She knew that something might have happened to Yang Lu. White Fox's expression changed drastically, but it didn't matter. She still had a backer. She shouted loudly, "I'm innocent. Yang Lu forced me to do this. I want to see Seventh Madam. I want to see Seventh Madam." "You talk too much." The man shook his head lightly. Immediately, the members of the security bureau around him swarmed forward, covered the White Fox's mouth, and caught it. In Tian City, Yuan residence. Big Boss Yuan Qian was sitting in his central room, drinking tea with a leisurely expression. He had already received news that his master, Yang Lu, would soon be in power. At that time, he would be able to obtain goods from Crimson City endlessly. At that time, he would become the wealthiest merchant in southern Ming. Once he thought of the countless silvers that would fall into his hands. Yuan Qian couldn't help but smile. But soon he couldn't smile anymore. A group of strangers suddenly rushed into his house. Without any explanation, they tied him up and took him away. After that, when his family reacted and went to report it to the authorities, where was he to be found? Crimson City, in a courtyard in a bustling area. At this moment, a woman with a good figure was boiling a medicinal soup. Beside her, a younger girl was helping to add fuel to the fire. Dang, dang, dang. Someone knocked on the door. Then, without anyone's permission, the door was opened from the outside, and a group of policemen in black uniforms entered the courtyard. What are you doing?" The woman turned around and saw the scene behind her. She couldn't help but frown, displeasure appearing on her face. She didn't notice that the girl beside her was much more nervous than her. After the policemen entered the courtyard, they didn't move around. They just stood there. It wasn't until another person walked out from behind him that the policeman stood at attention. At this moment, the woman saw the person who came. "Elder Long?" "That's right." The person who came was Yangtze's chief of police. At the same time, he was one of the 5 elders Long Tainan. The woman who called out to her was Chi Chiga, the wife of Beta Persei, Yang Chendong's servant. It was precisely because of this that Kikij was very surprised to see Long Tainan. Then, she instinctively thought of something and couldn't help but say, "Could it be second brother Yang?" "No, brother Beta Persei is fine." Long Tainan quickly shook his head. When she heard that it was not Beta Persei who was in trouble, Kikij became even more worried. "Could it be that my little brother—" "No, Master Batu is also very good." Long Tainan had to explain. Then, Kikij's expression changed even more as she said, "Could it be my mother?" "No, the other mother is healthy and well." After Long Tainan quickly explained 3 times, he decided to go straight to the point. He pointed at the maid behind Kikij Alien and said, "Madam Beta Persei, we are here for her. She has a problem. Please allow us to take her away. As for what happens after, brother Beta Persei will explain it himself." "Ah, what are you doing? I'm just a weak woman. Master, save me." Lien saw that things were not going well. It was very likely that she was exposed. She quickly screamed and wanted to pull Kikij's hand. The 2 police elites, who were already prepared, rushed over and held Alien's arm. At the same time, a short dagger fell from their sleeves. It was conceivable that if the police were any slower, Kikij would have become a hostage. What's going on?" "Alien, what are you trying to do?" Kikij obviously saw the problem and asked in surprise. Over the years, she had a husband like Beta Persei and a brother like Batu, who was already a teacher. She had already broadened her horizons. How could she not see that Alien was trying to harm her just now? At this time, Alien naturally did not know how to answer her. She could only lower her head. Long Tainan stepped forward and explained, "Brother Beta Persei will explain the details later. The task I received was to take this person away. I hope Madam Beta Persei can make things easier." It was because of Kikij's special identity that Long Tainan personally came this time. If it was someone else, a small captain would be enough. "Okay, take her away. I'll ask Beta Persei what's going on later." Kikij also knew that they respected her and gave her face. She had to bear with it and nodded in agreement. Kaisan City Palace. When Yang Chendong left the palace and went to the dock, Queen Huyen led a group of people to the 8th Madame Junko's bedroom. The sudden arrival of the queen made the maids panic, and they all knelt down to greet her. 8th Madame Junko also came out with little Yang Xian to greet her. "Good sister, please get up. You have been wronged." Seeing Junko about to kneel, Huyen quickly strode forward and helped her up. "Sister, I don't know." Hearing that she had been wronged, Junko's tears almost flowed out. Although Yang Chendong had come to see her more than once during this period, he always came secretly at night and left secretly. The other people in the palace didn't know about it, so she suffered a lot of disdain these days. Now that the queen had appeared here openly, did it mean that she had to clear up her problems at this moment as well? Seeing the hope in Junko's eyes, Huyen smiled and nodded. Then, with a wave of her hand, Tomiko appeared from the crowd. The appearance of Tomiko's personal maid, who was also the head maid, immediately attracted a lot of people who didn't know about it. Wasn't Tomiko's problem already dealt with? But now she appeared here, and it seemed that nothing happened. What was going on? Many people didn't understand, but some people knew. For example, Chui Xiao, who was kneeling on the ground at this moment, her eyes were already flustered. She was obviously scared. Capture her. When Tomiko appeared, Huyan's voice suddenly became cold. As soon as she finished speaking, a few tall and sturdy maids walked out and came to the side of Chui Xiao, who was kneeling on the ground, pressing her down firmly. What are you doing? I want to see 5th Brother Yang. I want to see 6th Brother Yang. Thinking of the 2 backing behind her, Chui Xiao couldn't help but shout, "You will see them. Take her away." Huyan's voice was still cold. In the presence of many maids, Cui Xiao was taken away like this. Then, Huyen announced in public that the rumors about 8th Madame Junko's problem were just rumors. Now that it had been investigated, no one was allowed to talk about it anymore. Otherwise, the palace would punish them. With the queen's words, all the maids agreed in unison. Tears flowed out of Junko's eyes uncontrollably. She knew that her innocence was finally revealed to the world. On the other side of the palace, a telegram was in little Yang Bo's hand, and a pile of loose telegrams were placed in front of him. They were all asking what to do. Yu Qian, Luan Xiaoqin, Xinyu, Wu Qian, Long Tainan, who had just returned from a mission, and the only military member left in Kikian City, Lung Song, all stood in front of little Yang Bo. Everyone looked very nervous. The coded telegram sent by Yang Lu had now spread to all the Yangtze units and departments with radio stations. Because of this, it caused a huge commotion, especially the army. Now, all the provinces, regions, and forces under the Yangtze had sent telegrams, asking what was going on. Did something really happen to Bugnam of Gojoseon, and so on? The 5 elders also didn't know where Yang Qindong went. They only knew that Bugnam of Gojoseon was no longer in the city after receiving the telegram. After discussing with each other, they came to the palace to see the eldest son, who was also Yang Qindong's designated successor, Yang Bo, to find out what to do. Yang Bo held the coded telegram in his hand, and the words that his father, Yang Qindong, said to him the last time they met appeared in his mind. If you think it's right, just do it. Thinking about Yang Qindong's words, Yang Bo suddenly seemed to have gained confidence. His eyes suddenly opened wide, and he asked, "How's the situation in Kikian City now?" Answering the prince's question, "Everything is fine. With us here, there won't be any problems. But as time goes by..." The one who answered him was the most senior, Yu Qian. It was obvious that they could use their prestige to suppress the situation for a short period of time. But if something really happened to Yang Qindong, then it would be hard to say. What about the army? This time, Yang Bo looked at the only member at home, Lung Song. Lung Song, who had been promoted to first-rank general, immediately saluted and answered, "The soldiers in Kikian City are fine. Although there are some emotions, they are stable. But many generals outside have sent telegrams asking what's going on. If time goes by..." Lung Song didn't say much after that. However, everyone could understand what he meant. The army wasn't like the army. There was a saying, when a general is outside, he can't give orders. If Yang Qindong wasn't prepared and something happened to him, then the other forces would inevitably try to rope him in. Some ambitious generals might even reveal their confidence. If that was the case, then who knows what would happen. Yang Bo nodded after hearing this. Although he was only 11 years old, his experience since young made him more mature than his peers. Not to mention, when he was free, Yang Qindong would bring him to deal with all kinds of things. Previously, Yang Qindong had purposely said something special to him, so he was somewhat prepared. Yang Bo, who was more confident than the others and trusted his father a lot, finally said, "Everyone has seen the telegram. I believe in my father, he will be fine. You should also believe it, so do what you need to do. At the same time, we also need to pay special attention to the reactions of the people below, especially those generals who hold great power. Immediately have the intelligence departments in various places take action and keep an eye on their every move. Also, my father will be fine. We must believe that even if something happens to my father, I will still be here. Don't worry about anything, understand?" Chapter 1655. The last sentence was intentionally raised in volume. When Yu Qian and the others heard it, they couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Yes, isn't Crown Prince Chang here? Yang Qindong had already appointed an heir when he was still alive, so Yang Xia had someone to inherit her position. The main thing was that her strength was still there. If that was the case, what was there to be afraid of? Even if someone really had other ideas, they could just go back and deal with them one by one. As long as Yang Xie's main strength was still there, how chaotic could the outside world be? After figuring this out, they immediately cupped their fists and saluted. Yes, we will follow Crown Prince Chang's orders. Above the sea, several warships finally gathered together, and then several people walked out of each ship and gathered on one ship. They went straight to Yang Qindong's level 5 warship in the distance. If someone was on this ship, they would definitely cry out in surprise after seeing the people on this ship. There were even some young Yang Xie women here who couldn't help but scream in admiration because the people standing on this ship were Tiger's Mane, Beta Persei, Yang San, Yang Si, and Yang Wu. Because of work and the growing strength of Yang Xie, these people who were trusted by Yang Qindong the most haven't gathered together for more than 10 years. This time, they did receive a secret message and gathered at the sea. When they first came here, Tiger's Mane, Beta Persei, and Yang Si were all confused. They didn't understand why they had to gather at the sea. After all, each of them had a lot of important things to deal with. Yang Wu had a slight feeling, but he wasn't very sure. The one who knew what was going on the most was Yang San, the director of the security bureau, so everyone's eyes fell on him, trying to figure it out. If it was before, Yang San wouldn't talk nonsense, nor would he dare to. But now, he knew that the truth should be out, and he could also reveal the mystery to his closest brothers. Brothers, this is what happened, as Yang San recounted what had happened to Yang Lu. All the furnishings in the main cabin were smashed clean in a short period of time. The old men were furious. They had all started when the young master was still a nobody, and had followed him step by step until today. Now, they could have whatever they wanted. In the entire Yang Xie, they also had a high status that no one else could compare to. Even though none of them, including Tiger's Man, had entered the cabinet in reality, their power was not below any of the cabinet elders. To put it in a slightly exaggerated manner, once they expressed their views on a certain matter, even the cabinet elders would think about it carefully. Who gave him such a result? Who was the one who gave him such influence? There was no need to say more. Everyone was well aware of it. As long as they continued to work hard, one could imagine what kind of glory they would have in the future. Even their descendants would benefit endlessly. They were the young master's servants, the most trusted kind. Logically speaking, anyone could betray him, but they would never do so. This was not only their opinion, but also the opinion of many Yang Xie people. But now, not only did Yang Lu betray the young master, but he also wanted to choose and replace him? This result was unacceptable to the brothers. Yang Lu could be lazy and could also make some small mistakes, such as accepting bribes, but he absolutely could not betray him. This was not allowed by any of the masters. In a short period of time, everyone smashed things and scolded people. Then they quieted down a lot. The first to speak was Tiger's Mane, who had always been the eldest. It's my fault. We've been too good to Yang Lu. The last time he made a mistake in the first city, I even pleaded for mercy on his behalf. As a result, he became bold and unscrupulous. When Beta Persei saw that his eldest brother had admitted his mistake, he immediately said, "I'm also responsible for this matter." I also pleaded for mercy back then. I thought that since we're all brothers, I would definitely help if I could. But now, it seems that our indulgence has made Yang Lu overestimate himself. If I had known this would happen, I would have dealt with him back then and locked him up so that he wouldn't be able to do any evil. Let me remind you that it's not a matter of locking him up now. The matter is far more important than this. If the young master hadn't been prepared, I'm afraid that today would have been really dangerous. Even the entire Yang Xie would have been implicated. Yang San could only remind his two brothers when he saw that they were still avoiding the important matters and dwelling on the trivial matters. They still had a glimmer of hope to save Yang Lu. As brothers, why would Yang San want to deal with Yang Lu? This matter was really too big, especially after the coded telegram was sent. Everyone in Yang Xie knew that he was going to replace the young master and become the Bugnam of Gojoseon. How could they not give everyone an explanation for this matter? As soon as Yang San spoke, all the brothers immediately shut their mouths and fell into deep thought. Seeing that everyone still wanted to be good old men at this time and wanted to help Yang Lu, Yang San couldn't help but laugh and say, "Brothers, I know what you're thinking, and I can understand how you feel. But there are still some things that I have to say. Now that the matter has become so big, it's not something that we can handle behind closed doors. The young master has to give everyone an explanation for this matter. In other words, Yang Lu must die. This is beyond doubt and cannot be changed. Anyone who wants to plead for him will only end up losing the young master's trust forever. What's the matter? Someone wants to rebel and you want to plead for him. Doesn't that mean that you also have the same thoughts?" When Tiger's Mane and the others heard these questions, they were all shocked, especially Tiger's Mane. He had followed Yang Qindong since he was young. In terms of relationship, he was much closer to him than the other Yang Xie servants. He would never allow anyone to threaten the young master, even if that person was his closest kin. For example, if that person was his son, he would place righteousness before family. Now, how could he really sacrifice himself for Yang Lu, who brought this upon himself? Not to mention whether this would cause the young master's displeasure, just based on the fact that someone had threatened the young master. He could not let the other party go. After thinking it through, he said, "Thank you for your reminder, Brother Yang San. As your big brother, I'm here to say that no matter how the young master wants to deal with Yang Lu, I'll support him with both hands. This doesn't mean that I don't have feelings for everyone. It's just that Yang Lu's actions are too much. If you have any opinions about me because of this, then as your big brother, I can't say anything. But even if you have opinions, I will stand firmly on the young master's side." As soon as Tiger's Mane finished speaking, Beta Persei was unhappy. As the servant who had followed Yang Qindong the longest over the years, Beta Persei's feelings for Yang Qindong were as deep as Tiger's Mane's. How could he plead for leniency because of Yang Lu's suicidal behavior? Not to mention that the other party had poisoned his mother-in-law in order to achieve his goal. At that moment, he also said, "I have the same thoughts as Big Brother Tiger's Mane. We support the young master's decision. No one can be blamed for this. Everything was brought upon by Yang Lu. We won't blame Big Brother Tiger's Mane because what you did was right." After Beta Persei's statement, Yang San, Yang Si, and Yang Wu also clarified their attitudes. Needless to say, everyone's thoughts were the same. That was, they could no longer plead for leniency for Yang Lu. As for how to deal with this person, they would completely abide by Yang Qindong's opinion. With their attitudes united, Yang Sen ordered the ship to speed up and move closer to Yang Qindong's main ship. On the main ship, Yang Lu and Chao Jixiang were pressed to the ground, unable to move. At the moment, Yang Qindong was listening to the report from the Telecommunications Division Chief, Wang Shan. "Young Master, as soon as the coded telegram was sent out, we received a lot of inquiries, but you didn't reply to any of them. Do you think there will be any problems?" Wang Shan asked nervously. He could understand the young master's thoughts. He could use this matter to test some people, but what if he overdid it? If there was a problem with Yang Xie's situation, the gains would not make up for the losses. "What? Do you have doubts about the young master's judgment of people?" Yang Qindong said with a smile. But as soon as he finished speaking, he felt something. He glanced at Yang Lu, who was kneeling on the ground, and shut his mouth. Wasn't this a ready-made example of an error in judgment right in front of him? Speaking of which, using Yang Lu was different from using other generals and provincial governors. Yang Lu was a servant of the Yang family. He was used because of his good performance in the past. But since he made a mistake, he was also sidelined and placed in the Southern Ming dynasty to organize intelligence. It seemed that the task was heavy, but in fact, Yang Qindong had no intention of sending troops to the Southern Ming dynasty. In addition, there was not only the Security Bureau in the Southern Ming dynasty, but also the existence of the CIA. Yang Lu's power had been greatly weakened. After discovering Yang Lu's conspiracy, if it were not for the fact that he wanted to wipe out all of Yang Lu's forces, he would not have taken this risk. Therefore, Yang Qindong no longer had any trust in Yang Lu. If it were not for the fact that he wanted to take this opportunity to find out those who opposed him, he would have dealt with them long ago. This could not prove that Yang Lu had misjudged him. After all, if it were other people, they would have died because of the mistakes they made in the beginning city. How would they have the chance to do this? So seriously speaking, Yang Qindong's judgment was still good. For example, the provincial governors and generals he appointed in the provinces were all killed in blood and fire. They were also given the opportunity to control a region after careful consideration. But for such people, what was their temperament? How was their ability? Yang Qindong couldn't say that he knew everything, but he could be considered to have seen through 80% of it. As for the remaining 20%, there were two major departments, the Security Bureau and the CIA, monitoring their performance at all times. This also made Yang Qindong feel more assured to use them. Chapter 1656. Because of this, Yang Qindong didn't believe that they would betray him. Perhaps one day, when it was proven that he was no longer around, some of them would be tempted by others to betray him. But now they definitely wouldn't. And this time, the main target of his probing wasn't them, but his successor, Yang Bo. Theoretically speaking. Yang Bo was only 11 years old and shouldn't be under so much pressure. This was because people of the same age were playing happily, and many of them were even acting spoiled in front of their parents. But so what? Different people's fates were different. Since you had to bear so much, you had to be able to withstand the pressure. Keep an eye on Yang Bo's movements and the others. Report back immediately if there's anything. Yang Qindong thought for a while and said to Wang Shan. He wasn't in a hurry to go back, but he wanted to watch the show from the sidelines. He wanted to observe everyone's performance as a bystander. Wang Shan immediately agreed. At this moment, there was a sound from the telegraph machine. The staff beside him immediately translated the contents of the telegram and sent it to the director, Wang Shan. After reading the contents, Wang Shan was delighted. He immediately presented the telegram to Yang Qindong and said, "Young master, there's news. Tian, who sent a coded telegram." Oh, hearing that it wasn't from his son, but from the world's first cavalry army's commander, who is also one of the 5 members of the military commission, Yang Qindong was curious. He took the telegram and read it. When he saw the contents, he couldn't help but laugh. It was also a coded telegram. Tian, whose main idea was that he firmly supported Crown Prince Yang Bo. Before there was any news from Bugnam of Gojoseon, he represented the world's 1st Cavalry Army and the Army's 2nd Division to support all of Crown Prince Yang Bo's orders. And if anyone dared to have other thoughts at this time, as long as Chang Shitzi gave the order, he would lead the army and come. At that time, no matter who the opponent was, he would not let go of anyone who caused trouble. He would kill them all and clean up the family. Tian, who was not only Yang Qindong's student, but also a fierce general. In terms of battle prowess and influence, he was one of the best in the entire army. There wasn't a single young Xie general who didn't know about Tian Hu and the reputation of the world's #1 cavalry army. Many of the original leaders of the #1 army in the world had now become the backbone of other armies, especially Bai Shuang, Tianfeng, and the others. They had even become first-rate great generals, and had become existences akin to feudal officials. In a way, Tian Hu's incident also represented their attitude. This made Tian Hu's influence even more rare. Now that he had made a name for himself and brought the 2nd Division of the Army's Cold Front Division to fame, his influence was naturally huge. It was not hard to imagine that anyone with some ulterior motives would become obedient after seeing this coded telegram. And with Tian Hu being the first to take the lead to support Yang Bo, presumably there would be more and more people who would respond. This way, the overall situation would be stable. The reality was just as Yang Qindong had expected. Soon after, the governor of East Europe and the commander of the new Second Army, Shibi, also sent a coded telegram making the same decision as Tian Hu. Not only that, she also expressed that she would, like Tian Hu, attack anyone who wanted to harm Yangxia, including those ambitious officials in Yangxia. It had to be said that back then Yang Qindong had thought that Shibi had a good political vision, and now it had come true. Next, it was lively. The governor of East Asia and the commander of the First Army, Bai Shuang, the governor of India and the commander of the Second Army, Gongfeng, the governor of the 3 eastern provinces, Liaodong region, Lu Ji, the general Yiligong, the governor of Shaowei province, Yao Yingjun, the governor of the 3 southern provinces, and so on, all sent a coded telegram to express their attitude. Then, some individual leaders, such as the Army's Cold Front Division, the Navy's Cold Front Division, including Yang Xie's military commission member, the Navy's deputy commander, Gao Xiong, the Army's deputy commander, Leng Song, the Air Force's deputy commander, Tianyu, Yumian, the new Army's commander, Suhi, and so on. They all expressed their support for Yang Bo and attacked him. They also publicly stated that they would not accept the so-called decree of the Southern Ming Emperor. Telegrams after telegrams were sent to Yang Qindong. As Wang Shan read them out word by word, his expression naturally became better and better. On the other hand, Yang Lu and Chao Jixiang, who were kneeling on the ground, had ugly expressions, especially the latter. He had even begun to think about what kind of pressure the failure of this plan would bring to the Southern Ming Empire. If it was him, he could use this as an excuse to send troops to the Southern Ming Empire. After all, Zhu Qijin's personally drafted imperial edict was now in Yang Qindong's hands. Just based on the fact that Zhu Qijin wanted to establish Bugnam of Gojoseon, it was enough reason to send troops. Young master, all the cabinet elders have also sent telegrams to express their support for Yang Bo. Then, eldest crown prince Yang Bo also sent a coded telegram. Wang Shan looked at the newly received telegrams, and his face was filled with joy. Oh, what did Bo say? Yang Qindong was interested. Eldest crown prince said that he firmly believes that imperial father will be fine. He wants all the military departments to carry out their duties and not be disturbed. If something happens to imperial father, he will take up the heavy responsibility and send troops to the Southern Ming Empire first. Wang Shan read the contents of the telegram. Yang Qindong nodded continuously after listening and said, "Not bad, he knows that the conflict has shifted. Very good." Yang Qindong was indeed very satisfied with this move. By sending troops to the Southern Ming Empire to avenge himself, he would have enough time to sort everything out. In this way, after dealing with the Southern Ming Empire, many things would naturally fall into place. The new throne would also be stable. Seeing that Yang Qindong seemed to be in a good mood, Wang Shan asked tentatively, "Young master, do we also need to send a telegram to announce to the world?" "Don't be anxious, let's wait for a while." Yang Qindong's gaze fell on Yang Lu, who was kneeling on the ground. The first telegram was sent by this person. Of course, the next step was to solve his problem and announce it to the world. Reporting. A black cavalry stood outside the main cabin and said loudly, reporting to the 6th young master, Tiger's Mane, Beta Persei, Yongsan, Yangtze, and Yangwu's ship is approaching us. They are requesting to board the ship. Please give us your instructions. Let them in. Yang Qindong knew that the main character had arrived and could solve Yang Lu's problem, so he nodded and said, "Let them in." "Yes, 6th young master. Do we need to conduct a body search on them?" The Black Knight Dragon Guard asked in a clear voice. If it was in the past, no one would ask such a question. It was not for any other reason, but because these people were the most trusted people of the 6th young master. They were people who could be trusted. Even if someone had a problem, they would not have a problem. But now, after the incident with Yang Lu, no one dared to think that way. That was why they asked for such a request. "No need. They are still young master servants. They will always be my servants," Yang Qindong said with an unhappy expression. Understood. The Black Knight Dragon Guard, who asked for instructions, quickly retreated. Ba Daojiang, who was standing in the main cabin, was so shocked that he quickly apologized. 6, young master, the brothers below are just doing it for your safety. Please don't take it to heart. I know, they are doing it for my own good. But Yang Lu is Yang Lu. He is not the same kind of person as them. Don't say such things again in the future. Yang Qindong waved his hand and interrupted Ba Daojiang's words. However, he knew very well that some things had happened, and it would be very difficult to go back to the beginning. This could be felt by Tiger's Mane and the others who were about to board the ship. Originally, their ship was close to Yang Qindong's main ship, but when they wanted to board the ship, they were stopped by the Black Cavalry. Although they did not point their guns at Tiger's Mane and the others, the serious look on their faces when they held their guns was very different from before. As the supervisor of the Black Cavalry, Beta Persei's expression was very ugly when he saw his brothers treating his brothers like this. He could not help but scold them out of habit. What are you doing? Can't you recognize us? Where did your eyes go? After all, he had been in charge of them for so many years, so he still had some authority. This shout made several Black Cavalry involuntarily put down their guns. However, there were still some Black Cavalry who were still holding their guns and staring at Beta Persei and the others. Their gazes were more of scrutiny. Seeing that there were people who were not convinced, Beta Persei was unhappy. He wanted to board the ship and kick the Black Cavalry. Of course, he would not really kick them, but he should at least teach them a lesson. Okay, second brother, things are different now. Yang San, who was always clear-headed, shook his head and reached out to grab Beta Persei. Yang Si also came forward and whispered, "Sixth brother has put us all in a lot of trouble." As soon as these words entered Beta Persei's ears, he remembered something, and his expression became a little ugly. But in the end, he suppressed the impulse in his heart and stood in place, waiting for orders. Tiger's Mane looked at everything that was happening in front of him and could not help but feel sad. This was something he had never thought would happen, but now, because of Yang Lu, it really happened. At this time, he had to admit that he had brought this upon himself. Fortunately, they did not have to wait for long before the Black Cavalry came and invited them to board the ship. As the leader, Tiger's Mane did not board the ship immediately. Instead, he asked carefully, "Do we need to be searched?" This sentence sounded like a joke. At least Beta Persei thought so. They were the young master servants and could directly address Yang Qindong as young master. In the entire Yangxia, only they and the telecommunications director Wang Shan, who was later trusted, could do so. Was this search not a joke? Who would have thought that the Black Cavalry would actually answer? Logically speaking, it should be done, but the sixth young master said that there's no need. He said that you are still the most trusted people. Chapter 16, 57. It was still 2 words, especially with the emphasis on the pronunciation. But in the ears of Tiger's Mane, Beta Persei, and the others, it was completely different. At this moment, they also began to face reality. This time, Yang Lu's matter was too big, so big that they didn't know how long it would take, or even if time was enough to reverse the situation. Thank you very much. Tiger's Mane's face showed a trace of a bitter smile, and took the lead to board the ship. As they boarded the ship, they quickly found that whether it was the Black Cavalry or the Navy Cold Front warriors, they were all looking at them with scrutinizing eyes. Especially the members of the Langia Special Forces. They were staring at his every move. It was as if they were reminding him not to play any tricks. Otherwise, they would really make a move. In terms of individual combat power, Tiger's Mane and the others were naturally no match for the Wolf Fang Special Forces, who trained hard every day. Therefore, in the face of such gazes, they were powerless to reprimand them. If it was in the past, if someone dared to stare at them like this, they would probably directly attack, and the other party would not dare to fight back. But now, forget it. It's better not to mention it. As a result, Tiger's Mane, Beta Persei, and the others were also filled with anger in their hearts. Of course, this anger was not directed at Yang Qindong, and they did not dare to. Instead, it was directed at Yang Lu. Outside the main cabin, Tiger's Mane and the others stepped forward, ignoring the scrutinizing eyes of the other soldiers around them. The 5 of them all knelt on the ground and shouted towards the main cabin. "Young master, we sinners are here. Please enlighten us, young master." "Come in." Yang Qindong naturally noticed the actions of Tiger's Mane and the others and could not help but sigh. Yang Lu's matter should not be blamed on these people, but in order to prevent such a thing from happening again, it was necessary to use this matter to warn them. None of them stood up because Yang Qindong didn't allow them to. Therefore, Tiger's Mane's group of 5 kneeled as they entered the main cabin. Then they knelt in front of Yang Qindong. "Now that you know what happened, I'll leave Yang Lu to you. As for how you want to deal with him, come up with a plan. You have to announce it to the world later, do you understand?" Yang Qindong waved his hand after saying this. Now that things had come to this, he wanted to see how Tiger's Man and the others would deal with this matter. If they still wanted to protect Yang Lu, like they did in the first city, then these people could not be used. At least, they could not be put in an important position. It was impossible for a superior to not have the heart to kill decisively. With such a character, sooner or later, she would be used by others and would threaten the master's safety. Still kneeling, Tiger's Mane's group of 5 dragged the tied-up Yang Lu out of the main cabin. The 6 brothers gathered together in the side cabin. As soon as they entered the side cabin, Beta Persei was the first to stand up. He raised his leg and kicked Yang Lu's body. A stream of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. It could be seen that the strength of this kick was not small. After Beta Persei, Yang San, Yang Si, and Yang Wu also stepped forward. After a series of punches and kicks, Yang Lu knelt on the ground and kept wailing. He shouted loudly, "Brothers, don't hit him anymore. If you continue to hit him, he will die. We won't have a brother like him anymore. Who still treats you as a brother?" Beta Persei became even angrier when he heard this. He kicked him a few more times, causing Yang Lu to wail in pain again. Seeing that the brothers had beaten him up, Tiger's Mane walked forward and helped Yang Lu up. Seeing Tiger's Mane appear in front of him, Yang Lu immediately begged, Tiger's Mane, I was really confused for a moment. I was deceived by Yang Ying. He turned out to be a spy from the southern Ming Empire. I was deceived." Looking at Yang Lu's pleading face, Tiger's Mane shook his head first and then said, "You used to be rootless duckweeds. You had no food, clothes, and a place to live. It was the young master who pitied you and took you in. He gave you glory and wealth and gave you everything. But do you really think you're that strong? Let me tell you, without the young master, you're nothing. You don't even think about repaying his kindness and even want to kill your master. You're a complete bastard. Tiger's Mane's voice grew louder and louder. The more he spoke, the angrier he became. He raised his hand and slapped Yang Lu twice. Yang Lu's teeth flew everywhere. Yang Lu's face instantly became red and swollen like a big loaf of bread. "That's right. You're really a disgrace to us. Do you know, after this incident, how can we let the 6th young master trust us? I'm afraid we won't even be able to repay his kindness. And all of this is because of your wishful thinking. Now, you still want to say that you were confused for a moment and that you're afraid that we'll kill you. Do you know that you're destined to die? Who cares about your life?" Yang Sen walked forward and said earnestly. Then he kicked Yang Lu, who had just knelt down, to the ground. Originally, Yang Lu only had a look of regret on his face. He still had hope in his heart that with the help of these brothers he would be fine. At least his personal safety would be guaranteed. Didn't something like this happen before? Wasn't he fine? Moreover, this time he didn't cause any substantial harm to Yang Qindong. Everything could be saved. But now, after Tiger's Mane and Yang San's words, He suddenly felt that things weren't as good as he thought. He might die. He couldn't help but cry. If his hands weren't tied, he would probably hug Yang San and the other's legs and cry. However, crying wasn't the way to solve a problem when a person did something wrong, especially when Yang Lu made such a big mistake. He actually wanted to capture the young master, and even wanted to kill the young master to replace him. This wasn't something that could be saved by others. Just like what Yang San had said before, if anyone dared to plead for Yang Lu this time, the person who pleaded for him wouldn't have a good ending. If he was in the young master's shoes, would he forgive Yang Lu's actions? Yang Lu cried, crying like a child. At this moment, he was extremely regretful. He thought about what Tiger's mane had said. In the past, they were all children who didn't have enough to eat and wandered around. They were always thinking about when they could have a warm home. They were already very satisfied. If they could eat hot meals, it would be a great gift from the heavens. But he didn't know when it started, but his ambition became bigger and bigger. Eating good food, drinking good wine, and having different women serve him every day. These were no longer enough to satisfy him. He wanted more. He even dreamed of becoming a king with a different surname. He even wanted to take the powerful Yang Xie as his own. Now that he thought about it, if this wasn't wishful thinking, then what was? If it wasn't for Yang Qindong's reminder, he wouldn't even know that his most trusted butler, Yang Ying, was actually a spy from the southern Ming Empire. Thinking about how terrifying it was, he was afraid that if he really became a king with a different surname, he wouldn't be far from death. Would Chao Jixiang and Yang Ying keep him alive once the Yang faction was completely destroyed and he was no longer of any use to them? Also, he realized that he had thought of things too simply. Even if Yang Qindong was no longer around, could he become a king? His master had a descendant. With such a promising eldest son like Yang Bo, his ambition would not be realized. This could be seen from the coded telegrams that he had just heard. At this moment, Yang Lu realized that he was like a clown who had been daydreaming all this time. To think that he was still wandering in his dreams, unable to extricate himself. Now he had become a prisoner. Even his brothers, who doted on him the most, wouldn't care about him anymore. He could imagine what kind of end he would end up in. He probably couldn't even ask for a quick death. When he thought about death, he thought about how his brothers didn't save him. At this moment, Yang Lu started to become stubborn. He suddenly stopped crying and raised his head to look at Tiger's mane, Yang San, and the others. He said angrily, "You are all people who are afraid of death. You didn't save me when I was dying. You are heartless and ungrateful. Today I, Yang Lu, have such an end. I'm afraid it will be your turn next time. So, saving me now is saving yourselves. Do you understand?" Death was at hand. He was still thinking of threatening others. Looking at Yang Lu's current state, he didn't look like the usual obedient younger brother. Tiger's mane and the others couldn't help but shake their heads. They knew that their younger brother was hopeless. Even if they worked together to save him this time, they didn't know what kind of mistakes they would make next time. Not to mention, they didn't have the strength to save him now. The mistake that Yang Lu had made was too big. Even if Yang Qindong wanted to save him, it wouldn't be possible. Now, there weren't only a few people in Yangxia. There were also those ministers watching. There were so many officials in those departments watching. There were also so many generals with military power watching. If Yang Lu didn't die, did it mean that others could follow his example in the future? Thinking of this, Tiger's mane and the others shook their heads. Originally, they wanted to come over and catch up one last time. At least, they wanted to see if Yang Lu had any other wishes that they could help him fulfill. But now, it seemed that there was no need for that. Shaking his head, Tiger's mane sighed. Then Beta Persei also sighed. They knew that this person was hopeless. At this moment, in the main cabin, Yang Qindong was interrogating Chao Jixiang. From time to time, Chao Jixiang would come up and punch and kick him. The other party was already covered in bruises and teeth all over the ground. Yang Qindong was very angry. He was actually used. If it weren't for his sixth brother, Yang Qindong, who was prepared, the consequences today would be unimaginable. From now on, the Yang family was completely finished, and all of this was obviously because of him. As a result, one could imagine how much he hated Chao Jixiang now. Whenever he was faced with Yang Qindong's questions, he would be severely beaten if he answered even the slightest bit slowly. This caused Chao Jixiang to answer whatever Yang Qindong asked without the slightest delay or hesitation. Chapter 1658. According to Chao Jixiang, Zhu Qijin felt that Yang Qindong was the biggest threat and wanted to get rid of him as soon as possible. Including the previous 3 provinces' king, Zhu Huihua, who used troops against Yang Qindong, it was actually the result of Zhu Qijin's connivance. Left with no choice, after Chao Jixiang accepted the mission, he thought of ways to rope in Yang Lu, using Yang Ying, who was arranged to be by his side to help him fall step by step. After making a mistake in the first city, he was transferred to the southern Ming dynasty. It didn't take long for him to get in touch with Chao Jixiang and began to plan and look for opportunities. Relying on his identity as Yang Qindong's servant, Yang Lu wantonly raked in money during his time in the southern Ming dynasty. The businessman named Yuan Qian was his spokesperson. With his relationship with Yang Lu, most of the goods transported from Kaisan City to the southern Ming dynasty were sold by him. With money in his hands, the next thing was easy to do. Yang Lu funded Zhu Huihua and asked him to find trouble with Yang Qindong. He also tricked the other party into entering the southern Yun mansion. It was a pity that this Zhu Huihua was ambitious but incompetent. Yang Qindong escaped and was caught instead. As a last resort, Yang Lu used his identity to find the training place of the ninjas in the northern village and rescued them. He gave them money to maintain their training and promised that as long as Yang Qindong was killed, they would be allowed to stand on their own. It was equivalent to finding a big helper. Seeing that Yang Lu was working so hard, Chao Jixiang didn't stay idle. He spent a lot of effort to find General Kuroda, who had escaped from the Japanese Navy, and asked him to lead the army to kill Yang Qindong. However, he never thought that everything was within Yang Qindong's expectations. In the end, Chao Jixiang failed and became a captive in the hands of others. Now he only regretted being enemies with Yang Qindong. He even knelt at the feet of Yang Qindong and said that he was willing to recognize him as his master and return to the southern Ming dynasty to help Yang Xie deal with the southern Ming dynasty. For someone like Chao Jixiang, it was no different to call him a dog. It would recognize whoever fed it as its master. Yang Qindong, who was at the side, was also convinced. He looked at Yang Qindong with an expectant gaze. Obviously, he felt that releasing Chao Jixiang as a spy for Yang Xie would be very beneficial for dealing with the southern Ming Empire. It was a pity that Yang Qindong ignored his hopeful gaze. Instead, he turned to Ba Daojiang and said, "Take him away and continue interrogating him. Make him spit out everything he knows. If you discover any southern Ming spies hiding in Yangxia, record them all." "Understood," Ba Daojiang hurriedly replied and was about to carry the kneeling Chao Jixiang out. Unexpectedly, Yang Qindong added, "The interrogation can be more intense as long as he doesn't die. If he really dies, then so be it. Just don't let him play any tricks." Yes, this time Ba Daojiang was considered to have received an imperial sword. Naturally, he knew what to do. He had long heard that the Langia Special Forces were very good at interrogating people. This time, he would be able to learn and observe properly. After Ba Daojiang left, Yang, who was left behind, was puzzled. "Fourth brother, why don't you let Chao Jixiang work for us? He's an ingrate. This kind of person is born with a rebellious nature. It's impossible to trust him. All right, fourth brother, you must be tired. Go to the side cabin and rest for a while." Yang Qindong interrupted his fourth brother. In history, Chao Jixiang was a rebellious person. When he was under Zhu Qiyu, he wanted to save Zhu Qijin from the Ying sect. In the end, he did it and rose to a high position. However, in the end, he still rebelled against Zhu Qijin and was killed. Knowing that he was such a person, he still used him. Wouldn't that mean that he had to be on guard all the time? How tiring would that be? Not to mention, Yang Qindong had already arranged for Mao Mu to stay in the southern Ming palace. This person had been hibernating all these years. It wasn't that he didn't have the ability. It was just that he didn't want to show off. Now that Chao Jixiang was no longer around, the eunuch group would probably have to be reshuffled. At this time, as long as Mao Mu was given a sum of money, this person might be able to play an important role. Since that was the case, what was the use of keeping a despicable person like Chao Jixiang? Yang Qindong didn't know about this. He only knew that his suggestion wasn't accepted. In addition, this time he trusted the despicable person so easily that something almost happened to Yang Qindong. With this, if it was someone else, even if they didn't die, they would be half dead. However, he was Yang Qindong's fourth brother. Naturally, he wouldn't do anything to him. However, it could also be seen that his ability was only so. He wouldn't be able to do anything big. Forget it. Since he had seen through his ability, he didn't need to care about anything in the future. He could just be a rich man with peace of mind, relying on the fact that he was Yang Qindong's fourth brother. As long as he didn't care about politics, then in the future wouldn't he be able to eat and drink well, living a carefree life? Yang Qindong had thought it through, so he strode out. It could be imagined that this person would retire from politics from now on. As soon as Yang Qindong left, Wang Shan came over to report the results of the naval battle. Under the early preparation of Commander Niatong, under the attack of the powerful artillery, 50,000 Japanese Empire's naval forces were completely annihilated. At this point, another problem was completely solved. Now, Commander Niatong had brought the fleet close to Yang Qindong. Tell Niatong that he did a good job. Yang Qindong nodded. For this battle, he already knew that whether it was the power of the artillery or the attack range, it was several times the opponent's. If this battle couldn't be won, then there was no need for Niatong to be the commander of the Navy. He should just go home and take care of his children. While the two were talking outside the main cabin, the voices of the 5 Tigers' main brothers came out. They wanted to see Yang Qindong. Wang Shan, you go out first. If there is any urgent situation in the radio station, inform this young master at any time. Yang Qindong knew that he had to face it sooner or later. Considering the face of Tiger's Mane and the others, Yang Qindong decided to face them alone. Yes, Wang Shan agreed, but he didn't leave immediately. Instead, he asked with a little worry, "Young master, do you need to call Captain Tai Hu and the others to wait outside the cabin?" Obviously, Wang Shan was worried about Yang Qindong. He was afraid that something would happen in the meeting. No, they're all on the same side. Yang Qindong shook his head. Yan Lu's matter was an exception. He didn't believe that Tiger's Mane and Beta Persei would do anything to harm him. If that was the case, he would be a failure as a person. Wang Shan was just reminding him. If he said anything more, he would have the time to sow discord. He nodded and walked out with the radio. Then Tiger's Mane and the others entered the main cabin and knelt in front of Yang Qindong without any explanation. Looking at Tiger's Mane and the others' uniform movements, Yang Qindong didn't say anything and just looked at them quietly. For many years, Tiger's Mane and the others didn't need to kneel when they saw Yang Qindong. Sometimes they saluted, and sometimes they nodded as a subordinate's etiquette. Normally, even if they knelt, Yang Qindong would ask them to get up immediately. But this time, the 6th young master didn't say anything. The quieter he was, the more pressure it brought to them. After a while, Tiger's Mane and the others, who didn't do anything wrong, couldn't help but have cold sweat dripping down their necks. In this regard, Yang Qindong didn't say anything as if he didn't hear anything. The room was so quiet that even a pin drop could be heard. However, this wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that outside the main cabin was also quiet. Badeo Jiang, Tiger's Mane, and the others had already removed all their defenses. The nearest black cavalry was also standing 20 meters away, making it even quieter. If it weren't for the waves hitting the ship, it would give people the impression that there was no one here. The silence continued. A quarter of an hour passed, half an hour passed, about 2 hours passed. Seeing that Tiger's mane and the others' clothes were drenched in cold sweat, and even Yang Si, who had the worst physical fitness, was a little unsteady, Yang Qindong finally said, "If you have something to say, stand up and say it." Yang Qindong asked them to stand, so they had no choice but to stand. Tiger's mane and the others hurriedly helped each other to stand up. Then they quickly straightened their bodies, but their heads were still lowered. Looking at Tiger's mane and the others, Yang Qindong couldn't help but sigh and say, Speak your mind. If you want to plead for mercy for Yang Lu, you can speak now." "No, we won't plead for mercy. Yang Lu deserved to die." Tiger's mane and the others spoke in unison. At this moment, no one dared to plead for mercy for Yang Lu. If they really did that, wouldn't they be disrespecting Yang Qindong? If that was the case, then they wouldn't be far from death. No one pleaded for mercy for Yang Lu, which was within Yang Qindong's expectations. The reason why he arranged for these people to come to the sea in advance was not to let them plead for mercy, but to let the brothers see each other one last time. It could be considered that he had done his last duty as brothers on behalf of Tiger's mane, Beta Persei, and the others. Of course, there was also a serious intention behind it. As Yang Xie's influence continued to expand, it became very difficult to threaten Yang Qindong. But this didn't mean that it was impossible. For example, if a few of the family servants really joined forces, they could still threaten him. If they really did that, due to their status as the Yang family servants, even if they mobilized their troops, no one would immediately say anything. Then a disaster might form. This was definitely something that Yang Qindong didn't want to see. After following him for so many years, it was a little unrealistic for Yang Qindong to abandon them. He still needed to use them, so he could only use them. Now, it seemed that the effect was quite good. "Well, young master knows your loyalty. Yang Lu is different from you. Some people are always insatiable. For such a person, even if you give him a mountain of silver, it won't be enough to satisfy his desires. He will definitely rebel. But fortunately, you are all kind-hearted people and won't do such a thing. This young master is very clear on this point. You just need to take this as a warning and do what you should do in the future." Chapter 1659. Hearing this, Tiger's mane and the others were touched. Tears flowed down their cheeks as they agreed in unison. "Good. Now, there are 2 things that you need to do. First, interrogate Yang Lu and see if he has done anything else that we don't know about. If there is anything else, you must find out who it is. Don't be soft-hearted. The second thing is to deal with Yang Lu. He must die, but how do you want to deal with his family? Come up with a plan now." Over the years, Tiger's mane and Yang Xie's servants all had their own families, and they all had more than one wife. It was the same for Yang Lu. There were more than 20 recorded wives, and naturally there were many children. Yang Sen had done a count before. Among them, there were 7 males and 9 females. It could be said that they had a lot of children. Yang Lu had to die for what he had done. But what about his children? Kill them all? If it was an incapable ruler, he would definitely do the same. However, Yang Qindong could not do such a thing, but he would not let them off easily. After all, when they grew up and found out that their father was killed by him, it was inevitable that they would have other thoughts. Even if he knew this, how could Yang Qindong allow it to continue? That was why he called Tiger's mane and the others here today to solve this problem. When they heard the problem of Yang Lu's family, their faces were bitter. They all thought that the young master was going to kill them all. Although what Yang Lu had done was indeed enough to kill 9 generations of his family, they were still brothers of Yang Lu. If they were to watch his entire family get killed, they would feel somewhat apologetic. However, at this time, they no longer had the courage and ability to plead with Yang Qindong. It could be said that Yang Lu's matter had nothing to do with them, but was that really the case? If they were not the servants of the Yang family, how could Yang Lu have the ability to set up such a big plan? With Yang Xie's strong supervision methods, how could these things not be discovered? In the end, it was Yang Xie's identity as a servant that played a role. It made people believe that what they did was beneficial to Yang Qindong. That was why no one investigated it. Because of this, Yang Qindong had stripped them of all their privileges and even demoted them to commoners. It wasn't too much. At that time, they were all bound together for good or ill. Unable to open their mouths to say anything, the 5 of them didn't know what to say. For a moment, the main cabin fell into silence. Why aren't you talking? Let's talk. Otherwise, when it's the young master's turn to speak, I'm afraid you'll regret it. Yang Qindong knew what everyone was thinking. Therefore, he directly threatened them. Only in this way could he force them to express their stance. Hearing this, the 5 of them panicked. They could imagine what the consequences would be once Yang Qindong expressed his stance. Therefore, after exchanging glances with each other, Ming was the first to speak up. Young master, logically speaking, what Yang Lu has done is not overboard with his family. But I think his family should not know what he did. After all, we're brothers, so can't you be lenient? With Tiger's man taking the lead, Beta Persei also begged, yes, just leniency. His family can choose to be exiled. Yes, they can even be exiled separately. The further they are exiled, the better. They can go to a place where no one knows them. They can even remove their Han nationality identity. Yang San was afraid that Yang Qindong would not agree, so he added, I agree with the 3 brothers. We can separate all our family members and send them to a remote place. Yang Si and Yang will also express their opinions. Basically, they all had the same idea. After the 5 of them expressed their opinions one after another, they fell silent again. They only looked at Yang Qindong nervously, waiting for the young master's final decision. Yang Qindong did not say anything immediately. Instead, he first looked at the 5 of them with a scrutinizing gaze. No matter who his gaze fell on, that person quickly lowered their head, as if they had done something wrong and did not dare to look at him. After an unknown amount of time, Yang Qindong finally sighed and said, Forget it. Since you all care so much about your brotherhood, I can't say anything about the young master. I'll allow it. Yang Qindong finally expressed his stance and agreed with the 5 of them. Tiger's man and the others also breathed a sigh of relief. Then they kowtowed nonstop to express their gratitude at the moment. But you have to remember that this matter is not over. If any of you have any delusional thoughts in the future, I won't let you off easily. Not only that, I won't spare any of Yang Lu's family members. Also, don't try to play any tricks. The young master will send someone else to supervise you. As for who it is, you don't need to know. If you find out that any of Yang Lu's family members are being taken special care of, then the 5 of you can just wait to be locked up and never see the light of day again. He still had to give them a warning. Yang Qindong could spare Yang Lu's life on account of his contributions and Tiger's man and the others' pleas. But if these people still wanted to play any tricks, then sorry, he could only bear the pain and take action. We don't dare. At this moment, Tiger's man and the others did not dare to play any tricks. It had to be said that the servants were all good people. Other than Yang Lu's betrayal, the 5 of them were all loyal and devoted, even until death. Seeing that the beating was almost done, Yang Qindong knew that he had to comfort them. Otherwise, if everyone worked with emotions, then he would be the one at a loss. Then he changed to a peaceful tone and said, If you want to talk about Yang Lu's matter, it's purely his own fault. Now that we've found out that the 5 of you did not participate, this makes the young master feel very gratified and happy. No matter what, it proves that you're all loyal and trustworthy. Next, I hope that you guys will continue to work hard. In the future, There will be a lot of opportunities for you guys to show off your skills in Yangxia. Take Tiger's Man, for example. After this, it'll be time for us to deal with the North and South Ming dynasty. For stability, we'll prepare to deal with them one by one. First, we'll start with the South Ming dynasty. Yu Mian is more familiar with the situation here and was once an official of the great Ming dynasty. He needs to be transferred over. Speaking up to here, Yang Qindong ordered Tiger's Man. Yu Mian will be transferred over. You'll be in charge of the matters of the beginning city. Yang Si will also be transferred over to assist Yu Mian. After all, this is the land of the Han. Not only do we have to reclaim this place, but we also have to let the people here live a better life. Yang Si has always been good at logistics. This time, we'll have to continue to work hard. Is there any problem? Go all out, no problem. Tiger's Man and Yang Si both replied. Also, Yang San, the intelligence department, will have to fully cooperate with the army. This time, the South Ming dynasty sent an observation team to Crimson City. They've gained quite a lot and the people's hearts are fluctuating. However, this will definitely arouse Zhu Qijin's suspicions. Therefore, it's inevitable that there will be some cleansing and chaos. At that time, you guys will have to do your best to save some useful officials. After all, if we want to manage this huge Yangxia, we still need Han officials. Understood, young master. I promise to complete the mission. Yang San also replied respectfully. Yang Qindong nodded. Then his gaze landed on Yang Wu and said, "The South Ming dynasty's observation team will come to Crimson City soon. You're already familiar with how to arrange and protect their safety. This time, you have to do a good job of receiving them." "Yes, young master, don't worry," Yang Wu immediately expressed. Finally, Yang Qindong looked at Beta Persei and said, "You can continue to follow the young master. There are many things that I'm not used to without someone following me." Yes, Beta Persei happily replied. Letting him stay by the young master's side was enough to prove that they were still trusted. This also made everyone feel at ease, as they didn't have to carry burdens to work. After having a heart-to-heart talk with Tiger's Mane and the other four, Yang Qindong seemed to be a little tired and waved his hand. "Then you can all go and do your own things. Yan Lu's matter must be resolved today." Tiger's Mane and the others already knew this result, but when they heard that Yang Lu was about to die, they still couldn't bear to see it happen. However, they also knew that this was already the best result. At least their families' lives would be saved. This was already Yang Qindong's mercy. They immediately answered in unison, and the five of them left together. The matter of the servants was finally resolved, and the troublesome traitor was also eliminated. Next was to deal with the matter of the South Ming dynasty. At this moment, Yang Qindong's gaze seemed to have crossed the sea and landed on Yingtian Prefecture. He really wanted to know how Zhu Qijin would react after knowing that Chao Jixiang's mission had failed. South Ming dynasty's capital palace. Zhu Qijin had been restless since he woke up in the morning. He knew very well that today was the day he would have a showdown with Yang Qindong, and he hoped that Chao Jixiang would succeed. In that case, Yang Qindong would no longer be a threat, and the mountain above the South Ming dynasty would be gone. Not only could he continue to be the emperor of the South Ming dynasty, but he could also find a way to unify the great Ming dynasty. A while ago, he received news that the Beiming emperor, Zhu Qiyu, had not attended morning court for a while due to health reasons. This was definitely a good opportunity for Zhu Qijin. He could imagine that without Yang Qindong and Zhu Qiyu as opponents, who else in the world could go against him? Speaking of which, Zhu Qijin also had some confidence in himself. At least he could be considered a capable emperor. He was able to bend and stand tall and was good at national affairs. This was what history recorded about him. Just like when he was captured by Yes Hanavwara, he could use his charisma to make others not dare to offend him and even worship him like an ancestor. This was the display of a gentleman and an emperor. Chapter 1660. After returning to the country, he was put under house arrest by Zhu Qiyu. Even the eunuchs around him bullied him. In the summer, even the only tree he used to enjoy the shade was cut down. He did not say a word and silently endured it. This was the performance of tolerance. In the end, when Zhu Qiyu was in poor health, he turned the tables and became an emperor twice. Finally, he led the great Ming dynasty to become strong again. This was his ability to unify the country and become an emperor. Such a person, if it weren't for the appearance of Yang Qindong, he would have become the emperor of the great Ming dynasty again. One could imagine how difficult it would be to make such a person lower his head and admit defeat. Since he didn't admit defeat, he could only take the initiative to attack. If Chao Jixiang could succeed, it would naturally be the best. But if he couldn't, Zhu Qijin had to consider the serious consequences. Time passed by little. Slowly, noon passed, and the sky slowly turned dark. There was still no news. Zhu Qijin's face remained unchanged. He knew that because the communication was not developed, even if Chao Jixiang succeeded now, it was impossible for good news to come so quickly. Let's go to the Empress Palace to take a look. Looking at the sky outside, it was already dark. Zhu Qijin called senior eunuch Qian, Bao, and went straight to the harem. In the Empress Palace, the chief eunuch, Mao Mu, was arranging everything in an orderly manner. He seemed to be no different from usual, but if someone observed carefully, they could still find that his hands were trembling slightly. This was caused by excitement. In the afternoon, Mao Mu went out to buy some silk under the order of the Empress. He was able to meet with the intelligence team that specially contacted him. He learned that Chao Jixiang was captured and that Yang Xie would soon make a move on the southern Ming dynasty. In other words, after enduring for so many years, Mao Mu was finally going to see the light of day. It was really exciting just thinking about it. Speaking of which, Mao Mu was not very ambitious. Especially after being valued by Empress Qian over the years. His life in the palace could be considered pleasant. His mentality was more peaceful. However, it was undeniable that the internal strife within the eunuch group had never stopped. Now, it was only because Yang Xie brought too much pressure to the southern Ming Empire that everyone's attention was focused on her. This caused the internal strife to be less intense than before. In addition, Empress Qian did not fight for fame or wealth. She never interfered in other aspects of the palace. As the chief eunuch, he was almost a decoration. He also did not have any power, so he was not targeted. Just because nothing happened now didn't mean nothing would happen in the future. The imperial palace was a dangerous place to begin with. Sometimes one wrong word could lead to a death sentence. Not to mention, if Yang Xie really failed, the relationship between Mao Mu and Yang Qindong would be discovered. At that time, Mao Mu would really die without a burial place. Therefore, on the surface, Mao Mu should have been doing something during this period of time, and there was nothing strange about it. But in the dead of the night, he would always spend his time trembling, afraid that he would accidentally be discovered. The next morning, his head would be gone. Perhaps this was the mentality of the underground workers. It was really beyond the reach of ordinary people. Fortunately, there was finally a result today. Chao Jixiang was caught and was destined not to be released. Yang Xie was about to make a move, and the situation was gradually becoming clearer. Mao Mu was getting closer and closer to his day of glory. Most importantly, the group that contacted him personally gave him 1 million taels of silver. They even said that they would give him more if it was not enough. As long as Mao Mu took this opportunity to obtain more power and support, he would be able to deal with Yang Xie's army. With a huge pile of banknotes in his arms, Mao Mu felt that his back had become a lot tougher. Eunuchs were like this. The reason why they destroyed their own foundation and became half human, half ghost, was not to have a mouth to eat, to earn more money, and to live a better life. In front of such a person, talking about dreams and life was definitely nonsense. It was far more practical than shining silver. Therefore, in the imperial palace, There was a saying that the rich were the masters. Even for a powerful supervisor like Chao Jixiang, wasn't his ultimate goal just to get more money? Mao Mu had what they wanted the most. Thus, he did not have to worry about people not working hard for him and not being loyal to him. Just as he was thinking about how to use the silver to rope in more people, a eunuch suddenly shouted from outside, "The emperor has fallen!" When Mao Mu instinctively knelt on the ground, he knew that the opportunity had come. The opportunity for him to be on good terms with Qian Sengbao had appeared. The three most powerful people in the eunuch group were the head eunuch, Qian Sengbao, followed by Chao Jixiang, the head eunuch of the Imperial Horse Directorate, and the head eunuch Kaizhong. These three people, especially the previous two, were very powerful. Moreover, both sides were equally powerful. It was impossible to tell who was stronger and who was weaker. At that time, Mao Mu did not have any intention to participate in order to protect himself. Now that he knew about Chao Jixiang's capture, and only he knew about it, it was time to gamble. Therefore, when Zhu Qijin entered Empress Qian's bedroom, Mao Mu changed his attitude and tried to establish a relationship with Qian Sengbao, who was waiting outside. Qian Sengbao's eyes were sharp and his hands were quick. After seeing the amount on the banknote, he immediately put it into his sleeve. Then he looked around and ordered the servants to serve him carefully. Then he followed Mao Mu to the side hall. After there was no one else, Qian Sengbao no longer had that high and mighty appearance. Instead, he changed his attitude and asked Mao Mu with a smile, "Eunuch Mao, you are so generous. What do you need this eunuch to do?" They were both eunuchs, so there was no need to hide many things. Mao Mu said respectfully, "Eunuch Qian, to be honest, this is this little one's life savings. Now, I am giving it all to Eunuch Qian to show my respect. I am willing to follow Eunuch Qian's lead." Hearing that Mao Mu was willing to rely on him, Qian Sengbao was very happy. After all, he was the head eunuch of the empress and had some power. Therefore, he was very proud and said politely, "Eunuch Mao is too polite. Since it is like this, we will be a family in the future. We will advance and retreat together." "Yes. Thank you, Eunuch Qian, for thinking so highly of me. This little one will work hard to keep up with Eunuch Qian's footsteps." Mao Mu seemed to be excited as he spoke with a fawning expression. Qian Sengbao's face flushed when he heard these words. He kept saying good, good, good. He believed that with Mao Mu's loyalty, he would have a higher chance of success when dealing with Chao Jixiang. At the crucial moment, he could have Mao Mu say some bad things about Chao Jixiang to Empress Qian. In addition, he could speak in front of the emperor. Then, there was no need to worry about Chao Jixiang not falling. Qian Sengbao's good mood fell into Mao Mu's eyes. He knew that there were some things he could say. He immediately mentioned that he was only the head eunuch of the empress and had limited power. Therefore, he wanted to join the embroidered uniform guard and become a deputy director. If it was before, even if someone made such an arrangement, Mao Mu would not do it. The embroidered uniform guard was Chao Jixiang's territory. Without the other party's permission, wouldn't he be looking for trouble? It was even possible that he would lose his life if he did not do it well. However, it was different now. He knew that Chao Jixiang would not return. If he did not make a move now, then when? When Qian Sengbao heard Mao Mu's request, he was shocked. He already knew that Mao Mu was not an ordinary eunuch. Otherwise, he would not have won the emperor's trust. Even the emperor had said more than once that Mao Mu was a good person. It was because he knew that Mao Mu could not endure it forever that it was normal for the other to make a request. He also felt at ease accepting the other's money. However, the other wanted to join the embroidered uniform guard. This really surprised him. As for the embroidered uniform guard, even if Qian Sengbao was the head eunuch, his power was not enough. In particular, Chao Jixiang had many tricks up his sleeve. In addition, his younger brother's nephew and adopted son helped him. These years, it could be said that he firmly controlled the embroidered uniform guard. Even he could not get involved. Therefore, these years, it was not that he did not think of making arrangements for people to join the embroidered uniform guard. It was just that he never had the right opportunity. He could see this logic clearly. He did not believe that Mao Mu could not see it clearly. However, he made this request. What did this mean? Logically speaking, with Qian Sengbao's position as the head eunuch, it was not too difficult to arrange for someone to join the embroidered uniform guard, even if it was a deputy director. First, the embroidered uniform guard was originally the eunuch group's private land. In terms of official position, he, as the head eunuch, could naturally manage and arrange personnel. Second, Mao Mu's qualifications were enough. He had been the Empress's head eunuch for more than 10 years. His rank had long been promoted. He could even be a director. There was also the most important third point. Chao Jixiang was not at home right now. It seemed that the emperor had arranged for him to do some secret things. Now was an opportunity to arrange for someone without any obstacles. But the problem was, if Mao Mu went to the embroidered uniform guard, once Chao Jixiang returned, would he have a good time? An outsider suddenly appeared in his own territory. At that time, it would not be easy for Mao Mu to safely withdraw. Since he had received the other party's money, of course he had to think for them. And Eunuch Mao, the embroidered uniform guard, is Eunuch Chao's territory. Once you enter, you will be arranged by this public security officer. I am afraid that he will have some thoughts. When the time comes and he really wants to argue, I am afraid that this duke will not be able to do anything. This was not an order, but a discussion. It was enough to prove that the 50,000 taels banknote was useful. At least, Qian Sengbao was thinking for Mao Mu. Many thanks for Qian Sengbao's consideration. This one has already thought about it. If I do not want to be unknown, then I must accept the challenge. So what if it was the embroidered uniform guard? In the end, Qian Sengbao was the head eunuch. How could this kind of power belong to Chao Jixiang's family? If this goes on for a long time, I am afraid that there will be a day when the tail will grow too big and it will threaten Qian Sengbao's safety. Since this is the case, this one is not talented, but I am willing to share Qian Sengbao's worries. Even if it is a dragon's pool or a tiger's den, I will still go and take a look. If it is not done well, it will be nothing more than 100 caddies of meat. If it is done well, it will greatly restrict Chao Jixiang's power. This way, Qian Sengbao will not let down his position as the head eunuch. You're tuning in to the Thunder Spear YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.